Alrighty. Here we go. It is a rather cloudy, gloomy sort of Monday. We welcome you to Dialed In. I'm Tom Brenneman alongside my main man, Luke Brenneman. Good morning.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Sporting the school faithful.
That's back-to-back shows for me. I mean, people are going to think I have no wardrobe here outside of my school, but hey, nothing better to rep.
If you have all Indiana stuff, you can't go wrong, those red and white colors.
Yeah, they better start performing athletically, though.
Yeah, it's a big year for them.
Big year,
especially in hoops.
Yes,
we'll see how it goes. Casey McCollister, our engineer, producer, how are you, young man?
I'm doing good, Tom. Doing fantastic.
It's good to be here. We come your way twice a week, Mondays and Fridays. I told you last week, we come your way at 9:15 a.m., Monday and Friday. We post later in the day on the Believe Network. So if you want to download our show on a podcast, by all means, just search Dialed In with Tom Brenneman, and you're dialed in. You can follow us on YouTube, the Chatterbox Sports page. We're trying to figure out with Luke's schedule, and he's got a morning class Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday, forgive me.
Grinder.
And I'm going to be working Fridays now with the football, so we're going to have to figure out when we can actually get this show together on Fridays. Mondays, we're good. We just got to figure out what we're going to do, right?
We'll figure it out. It'll either be Thursday or Friday. If we can find time Friday, great. If not, that pre-weekend show's a big one. A lot of predictions come football season. A lot to talk about for Saturdays, especially Sundays. Obviously, the Bengals are a big part of Chatterbox Sports, but you kind of get excited talking about that time of year.
Oh, man. And we're going to keep a running total this year, Casey. Running total.
Yeah.
And pay attention to it of the three of our picks.
Okay.
When the fall comes around. Okay?
Okay.
Because we're right at a month out from the start of college football. It starts on August 28th, 29th? And, man, there's some killer games early. Clemson plays Georgia. I mean, there's some big-time games. Anyway, all right, look. When the Reds came out of the All-Star break, right, everybody felt like, here we go. After knocking off those juggernauts in back-to-back series, the Colorado Rockies and then the Miami Marlins. But they go to Washington, a sub-500 team, the first three games, loss. And then everybody around here does what we've been doing all year long. We haven't been doing it. You have been doing it. And that's this. When they're hot, man, they're great. And when they stink, boy, they stink. Well, they go to Atlanta, they win a couple, and you're thinking, all right, here we go. Then they go to Tampa Bay over the weekend, and they score 4 runs in 3 games. 4 runs in 3 games, and yesterday was a killer loss. The offense is so bad. They have struck out almost 1,000 times in 3,400 at-bats. Think of that for a minute. The defense stinks. And look, I'm not going to beat down Ellie because this guy's trying to do whatever he can to win games for this team. But their base running blunders show up seemingly every other night. It is not a fundamentally sound team at all. Hunter Greene, they pulled him out of the game. Is 100 pitches like some line in the sand where the guy's got to come out? He had no stress. He throws 2-hit shutout baseball. No stress.
Skeen's got sent out there.
Well, of course he did. And then the decision to bring in Lucas Sims. Are you kidding me? Lucas Sims with the bases loaded? Go check out his walks per 9 innings. And how do you feel about him coming to a game with the bases juiced? Tonight, the Cubbies come to town, first of a 3-game series. That's a series, by the way, for last place. Bengals defensive end Sam Hubbard left yesterday's practice on a golf cart with a knee injury. Apparently, he's going to be okay. That's great news. Jamar Chase still isn't practicing. Does that bother you? We have some thoughts on that around here. And in a matter of moments, we have Charlie Goldsmith from Cincinnati.com. He covers both the Reds and the Bengals. So we're going to check in with him on all of this stuff. Sam Williams of the Dallas Cowboys, bad news for him, defensive end, in a non-contact special teams drill. He tears his ACL. He's out for the season. That's a shame. Young man out of Ole Miss. And lots going on in the Olympics, including that fiasco on Friday night, the opening ceremony. In basketball, Team USA wins 110-84 over Serbia. Next up, South Sudan. That will not be a layup. for the American team.
Should be.
Well, they gave them all they wanted in that exhibition game.
Obviously.
And they won a big game their first game, South Sudan.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, USA, we talked about it. They were 46-point favorites in the exhibition game. What is it going to be down to? 35 this game?
Well, it might be, but they only beat it by 2 last week. And it took a shot at the buzzer, if I'm not mistaken. All right, let's get to Charlie. He's here. It's been a long time since we've seen our good friend Charlie Goldsmith from Cincinnati.com. Charles, how are you, my friend? How you been doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing great. You haven't met my son, Luke. So, Luke, say hello to Mr. Goldsmith.
How's it going, Mr. Goldsmith? Thanks for joining us today, and nice to meet you.
What's up, Luke?
Charlie, I want to get to the Reds first because you're covering both right now, as you do all the time. Have we reached the end now?
I think the front office, as they weigh trade deadline possibilities. What I know is they do put some sort of mathematical value in giving this team a chance to make a run. And as they weigh decisions like, do you trade a Frankie Montas or a Jonathan India, they don't want to give up on the team. They want to, unless it's, it's a part of the calculus. They don't want to completely punt on the season. They don't want to be a complete sell-off. They don't want to be in that category because there is value and there is something that could benefit from giving the team the chance to make a run. But again, the fact that they're even sellers in the first place shows that, or they could be sellers in the first place, shows that, there's not really the expectation that this team is going to be doing much to push them towards the playoff push through a trade deadline acquisition. I'm not expecting them to be a very aggressive team from a buying perspective going forward. And the fact that they're not there certainly shows that this isn't a team that realistically has a good chance to be in the postseason mix.
Charlie, do you think after last season being in the position that they were at the trade deadline, was that somewhat of a colossal mistake not turning into a big buyer for maybe an arm at that point when, the Reds are 5 games under 500 right now and fans are still begging them to make a move because they really do have a shot. When you look at the games back, if you're within 4 or 5 games of a wild card spot, typically you're buying and you're trying to go. But looking back at last year, dang, we were in a lot better of a spot and did nothing. So what do you do now?
Yeah, I've talked to Nick Kroll a lot about the 2023 trade deadline. His line on this is consistently, tell me a move you would have made. And, look at this specifically. Everyone wanted Connor Phillips. I know Phillips has had a terrible season, has really disappointed this year. He's now in rookie ball, resetting. But last year, Phillips came up and he won the Reds 2 games. And winning the Reds those 2 games was a lot more than, or even a lot more consistent than a Michael Lorenzen or a Lance Lynn or a Jack Flaherty. The top pitchers who were traded ended up not even making the postseason rosters of teams that they ended up with. So kind of that was a lesson learned in that you have to be sure if the Reds were going to be buyers, I think they were looking towards kind of a tier up from that. It wouldn't have been the Lance Lynn of, right-handed hitting outfielders. I think they would have been looking to do a bit more and kind of step up a level. Someone who also could help them into 2025 and be a part of this regular core for a little bit longer. I think that was kind of the lesson they learned from last year. But this year, they just haven't won enough games to execute that.
Charlie, all of us sit around, and if you're thinking about them being sellers, and you sit there and look, I was announcing for 31 years, and I played this game at the deadline all the time. Didn't matter where I was, Chicago, Arizona, the Reds. You start sitting there and playing general manager yourself, right? If all of a sudden they were to, do you think that they could put together a package of, say, India, Montas, maybe a Fernando Cruz, somebody like a group like that, which could bring them, in theory, a significant upgrade offensively that they would have control over. In other words, a current major league player.
Two very interesting points in response to that. First, if the Reds were to trade a guy, especially like India, but I even get the sense Frankie Montas too. What I've heard is they're looking for something that could help the team more in the short term. This wouldn't be a Noelvi Marte and Edwin Arroyo package where, all right, it's best overall value, but you're probably not going to see him for a couple of years. They would like something, and they'd be looking for something that could come back pretty quickly. When you mention packaging those guys and getting something in return, like the White Sox aren't taking that deal for Luis Robert, and because the White Sox are trying to go as far into the future as they possibly can. Other than that, I don't see a ton of, super standout, borderline all-star caliber impact bats on this market. Like, I really like Lane Thomas. He's a guy who, if I were the Reds, I'd be trying to put something together for, but that would be way too much to give up for Lane Thomas, and the Nationals are also looking towards the future. Like the Orioles traded Austin Hayes. I would have been all in on, the Phillies traded one of their setup guys for a really solid outfielder. If I were the Reds, I'd love that style of move, because you take your strength, which is your bullpen depth, and you use it to address a weakness without taking anything away from your farm system. But obviously that's in the past. And then looking at the trade market now, again, like I don't see who that, again, borderline all-star tier guy is who packaging those guys together would be worth netting you in return.
Okay. All right. Let's shift gears over now to the Bengals, because they're starting to dominate now the headlines. And does it bother you at all, Charlie, and we're going to talk more about this later, does it bother you at all that Jamar Chase is not practicing?
Doesn't bother me. I think in February we're not going to be talking about this at all. I think there's a chance in September we might be, especially if this goes a little further. A great comparison is T. Higgins last year. T. Higgins in week 1 against the Browns had the worst game I've ever seen maybe from any receiver. He was 0 for 8. There were, on targets. There were mental mistakes. There were drops. There were communication mistakes. And at the end of that game, Burrow said, we've been doing this together a while, me and T. When you don't get those reps in camp, obviously Burrow was the one who didn't participate. This is what you see. And so that's a lesson. No matter how good you are, and T's great, Jamar's even better, there is a ripple effect to this. And if Jamar, isn't as sharp or is running the wrong way or anything like that on 1, 2, 3 routes against Kansas City in week 2 very early in the season, that creates an important ripple effect for that stage of the season. Again, I don't think we'll be talking about this in February. I'm very confident Jamar will be a Bengal for a long time. But for now, certainly, it's something on the radar.
Speaking of this Bengals team, Charlie, I just wanted to ask you an idea that I've had, because coming off that year where they're AFC champions, they fall just short of the Super Bowl, it felt like that, as it was, a generational run for this team. Everybody in the city was shocked. We were behind them, and it was amazing. And then that set the bar for expectations. And obviously that bar is well-deserved with how high-powered this offense is. And the odds don't love them this season compared to other years. But with a healthy Joe Burrow and a bought-in T. Higgins, and once Jamar is obviously going to be ready to go week 1, is this arguably the most go time it's ever been for the Bengals?
I mean, sure, certainly, especially when you look at, this probably is T's last year with the Bengals. Guys like Mike Hilton, key pieces. Are you going to get Von Bell back? There are all these guys who could be, nearing the end. They keep losing more important pieces every season. And I look at this, too, from a Super Bowl expectations perspective. Like, the Bengals in 2023 had a ton of problems. We spent a lot of time talking about them. When Joe Burrow was fully healthy, beat the Cardinals, who were bad, but then they beat the Seahawks, a nice, gritty defensive win. They smoked the 49ers, some of the best football I saw all last season anywhere in the NFL. They beat the Bills by even more. They were a drop touchdown away from, they should have beat the Texans, a Texans team that ended up being a real contender. And then they were up on the Ravens. So the Bengals can say, and they have said, they've told me, like, with everything, they've said it, with all the humble pie we got last year, it's still a good team. And they feel like free agency and the draft addressed the weaknesses of the defense that really caught up to them in December. The expectations of the Super Bowl, that's very clear. Also, a couple players have told me, like, that humility from last season has created a more serious vibe. Mm-hmm. The being a contender isn't a guarantee. It's something they got to earn. And again, these are kind of cliches that you hear, but that's probably been the point that's been stressed to me talking to players the most so far this summer.
When you look at the defensive line, Hubbard appears to be okay, or that he's going to be okay after suffering some kind of knee injury yesterday, had to get carted off. How's Myles Murphy coming along? Some of these guys that they really need to step up to give Hendrickson and give Hubbard, a little bit more ammunition in terms of getting to the quarterback. How's that group been so far?
Yeah, Myles Murphy looks kind of like a different style of athlete. He's bigger. He's kind of like, in a good way, bulkier, in a way to be a more physical, aggressive edge setter. There's an obvious next step for him. Last year, before the Bengals played the Texans, I was talking to someone in the building about Myles Murphy. And the Texans, of course, have Will Anderson, unbelievable player. I was talking to him about Anderson, and they said, tell me how many rookies can come in and can play wound up. all the way ready to pin your ears back and go. And the point he was making was one. And there's just a time it takes to play freely and aggressively in the league that usually takes a while to translate. And kind of the subtext there was that Murphy wasn't there yet. Well, now with a different style of athlete, he is a big focus for him this camp and this offseason has been added versatility. Talking to Sam Hubbard before he got hurt, he said he needs to play fewer snaps. And the expectation is that Murphy gets more chances to be that guy who comes in and plays aggressively. Definitely a guy who looks to be in a strong spot on the depth chart right now. It's a big preseason for Osai to see where he stacks up. Cam Sample will always get his run-stopping snaps. Osai, I think, has to earn some more pass-rushing snaps, which, they like Osai, but if you're not good enough to be in on third downs, that's where he's supposed to shine. Cedric Johnson, I think, is going to have a really nice preseason. Their 6th-round pick and is a very interesting developmental defensive end as well. And then Sheldon Rankin should change the way the defensive line looks. So interesting spot for the pass rush right now. Definitely something that needs to improve significantly.
Charlie, to flip it to the other side of the ball, it's going to be the Bengals' first run at it without Tyler Boyd and obviously Joe Mixon. However, Tyler Boyd, come last year, he was non-existent some weeks and he was huge in others. But Joe Mixon was pretty solid the last couple of years consistently. What is this new backfield going to look like? What have you seen? And especially out of Zach Moss, what can he bring to this team? And what are the expectations? Because I don't really think anyone expects him to get 25 carries a game, but he could be a big piece for this team.
The Bengals are never going to be a run-first team. They're never going to be a run-second team. This is always going to live with Burrow. However, multiple players have told me, the motto of the year for the offense is more explosive plays. And, of course, everyone says that in training camp. But, look at Joe Mixon. He did some things well last year. He was maybe the least explosive running back in the NFL. And with Chase Brown specifically, and I'll answer your question about Moss, but Chase Brown kind of changes the look and feel of the offense. They're working on way more under center runs, way more than they did at this point last year. Because Chase Brown can break those off in he did it last week for a 60-yard touchdown, break those off in a way that really the Bengals haven't had a running back who can cut upfield and go like that in a while. I would say Brown has kind of been like the breakout player of camp. Looks like a completely different player. I didn't used to be the highest guy on Chase Brown. I thought he was a backup. Now I have a completely different opinion on him. And then Zach Moss comes in as your shotgun running back. Pass protection's an area he shines. He's a crafty, gritty runner between the tackle, can help you in short yardage, stuff like that. So more physical. That's kind of where Zach Moss chimes in. But I would say Chase Brown is the starter right now.
Okay. All right. Charlie, we thank you so much for your time, generously giving us your time here today. Your coverage is unmatched by anybody in the whole town on both the teams. So thanks so much and have a great rest of your day.
Good to see you guys.
Thank you,
too.
Charlie.
Charlie Goldsmith, Cincinnati.com. That guy, Casey, we talk about all the time. There's nobody, and when I said that, I mean it. There's nobody in this town more dialed in than that guy. When it comes to covering the two teams.
I know. I don't know how he does it.
I don't
when
either.
They're both going at the same time. September must be one of those times of the year for him where he's just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But, yeah, love him.
And that's literally and figuratively. Because a day like today, if they are practicing during the day, they being the Bengals, he will be at the Bengals training camp, and then we'll go to the Reds game tonight when they play at 7:10 versus the Cubbies.
And then we'll write an article, and then we'll do it all again the next morning.
All over again the next day.
That's who they try and teach us to be at college, to do everything, and it's about as impossible as it gets. But
not for Charlie.
His work ethic.
It's amazing.
I want to be like him.
Yeah, I mean, it really is amazing. There's an example of a guy who just busts his tail, and it seems like he's getting more and more rewarded with it, just by assignments he gets and all that kind of thing. So we thank him. All right, let's stay on the Bengals for a minute, and then I want to shift gears to the Reds near the end if we can. It does bother me a lot. Charlie said it didn't bother him. Casey, I'm sure you're going to say it doesn't bother you. Luke, I'm sure you're going to say it doesn't bother you. It bothers me because I am always a team-first guy. I get everybody wants to make money. Hell, who doesn't want to make money? I mean, seriously. You want to make money. Casey does. Luke does. I do. Everybody out here in headlines, everybody wants to make some money. I'm all in. Jamar Chase is going to make a ton of money this season. What's he making? $10, $11 million a year?
Yeah, he's making like 9 point something.
Okay, so he is going to get paid handsomely. Not like his next contract will be, but he is going to be paid handsomely. Okay? Now, this is a guy who's not played a full season yet in the NFL. He's been a great player. He has not played a 17-game schedule since he came in the league. He's going to make close to $10 million this year. We just heard a second ago about everybody all in. We've been wondering about this clock ticking. Is this teased last year? Probably is. You brought in Gesicki on a one-year deal. You know, you got all these guys, the Hiltons, the Von Bells. You know, all these guys, you're all in. Your quarterback's healthy. And I just think it is not good. And people can say, well, it's a business of football. So he's doing what he's got to do. I just don't think it's good that Chase is not out there practicing. And you can say, well, who gives a damn? It's the end of July. Fair point. Fair point. But you heard Charlie's reference a moment ago to that opening week with T. Higgins when he was dropping balls all over the field. And Burrow said, hey, look, I missed training camp, man. You need that time to get it together. You can't have it both ways. So if Burrow's going to say that about himself, I want to see if he's going to say it about Chase. Is he going to come out and say, hey, we need everybody out there and pulling on the same end of the rope?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's one of those things where this season, like Charlie referenced, it has a way different feel than other years for this team. And for a good reason. It seems like everybody's so bought in after the embarrassment of last year, losing some of those games, struggling early on when they were one of the most respected teams, and especially offenses, coming into the season. And their only wins were against Arizona and Seattle when the defense quite literally carried them to that huge win close to the midpoint in the season that got everyone excited before Burrow went down. And now you're at the point where you still finished 9-8 with a backup quarterback in Jake Brown. I mean, he played his butt off. But this is the year where you are humbled. You have to earn being a contender, is what Charlie said, and I love that. And for T. Higgins to do what he did and look like he's going to take this I want to get paid approach, and he said, I'm here to play. This could be my last run with these guys. I love this team. Let's go get a ring. And then Jamar to be the guy who's sitting out. I know he's still going to be fine, and I'm not personally going to overreact or lose sleep about it. But it is a little off-putting to the rest of the guys in the culture because I think they have a chance to kind of do what, if you want to put it into baseball terms, the New York Yankees are doing right now. I've never seen a baseball team with more stars that have their own personal engagement. I mean, they just got Jazz Chisholm. And the first thing he said was, you grow up and dream to be a New York Yankee. This is Aaron Judge's team. And, you know, I'm just going to take the back seat. Jazz Chisholm was Miami. He was the guy in a huge market. And you have to be able to say, hey, we're chasing something a whole lot bigger right now than just getting paid.
Casey, I know you're going to put on your orange and black colored glasses on this one, right?
I am in a sense. It's more of just my faith in Jamar Chase because he's not T. Higgins. He is a freak.
T. Higgins is pretty damn good.
Yeah, but he's I think you and I both agree he's a top 25 receiver in the league. Jamar Chase might be the best receiver in the league, arguably. I think that when you look at how Burrow and his connection with T, yes, it was pretty shaky early last season. I don't think you can say the same thing about Jamar Chase. I haven't looked at those numbers just yet. I'm going to here. But for me, Jamar Chase will be ready when he needs to be ready. They've already said that. Joe has already said that he'll be locked in, ready to go when it is go time. And I believe that. He's just doing this to try to put pressure on the Bengals to pay him now, which, in all frankness, I don't think that might even be the case. He's probably just sitting there waiting for CeeDee Lamb to get paid. Because when CeeDee Lamb gets paid, it might even give him a bigger boost, a more realistic contract. Maybe CeeDee Lamb gets the $35 million too. So then, yeah, obviously you got to give Jamar Chase $35. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I know exactly what
there's
you're
so many
saying.
factors playing into this thing. I'm not concerned at all. Jamar Chase, a freak. He's going to get right with Joe Burrow very quickly. He's probably just waiting out the rest of the contracts around the league, CeeDee Lamb specifically, to see if he can get even more money. And that's that. I mean, he's going to get paid next year anyways. They've already said that they would do anything to get the deal done. So if you think that Paul Brown,
God rest his soul, Paul Brown.
Yeah, Mike Brown. If you think Mike Brown's all in, ready to go, pay this guy whatever he wants, who do you think is waiting on the other side then? Who do you think is the one holding the deal up? It's probably Jamar Chase waiting to see if he can get more money. So I'm not worried about it.
One thing I'll say about Jamar is he's very good at playing the waiting game because he did it for that entire year in college. And that was a risky year because you lose traction. People forget about you. They don't care about you. They think you're fat. They think you didn't work out. And he was the most ready-to-go guy in the entire NFL come rookie year.
Great point.
So if someone can play the waiting game and keep their body in check and stay on the same timing, it's going to be Joe and obviously Jamar. I think that those two together, that they're going to be okay. Nobody should lose sleep over it. But it's there to talk about.
I just think it's all about perception. And again, that may mean nothing when all of a sudden they break the huddle the first series of the season. New England, right?
Yes.
Yeah, first game of the year.
He deserves his bag, though. He really does.
That's
I got no problem with that. But I don't. In fact, I root for everybody to make as much money as they can. I got no issue with the money at all. I get it. Totally. But I don't understand why people are beating down the Bengals front office for not having signed him to a contract. You don't have to do it now.
Oh, I don't beat
if
the
you
Bengals
can pay
down.
somebody
No.
$10 million as opposed to paying somebody $35 million for right now, what are you going to do?
Well, I mean,
The player's got to play.
That's true, but if you do sign him early, you can spread the money out.
All of that I get. But I'm just saying for the Bengals to not have signed him, I don't think that's a fair assessment of them not being committed to winning. I think for the first time, maybe in forever in the history of the franchise, the last 3, 4, 5 years have, by and large, has proven that they're trying to win. Although when you're 10, 15, $20 million under the salary cap, that doesn't look too bueno.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they're holding on to that money to pay Jamar Chase. Who knows?
You're getting a lot of compliments, by the way, Casey. Have you ever seen the movie Animal House?
Animal House? Yes, I do believe so.
One of the greatest movies of all time.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. John Belushi, the late, great John Belushi, among others in that one. There is a character in there whose nickname is D-Day. I'd like you to look up on the screen D-Day from Animal House, and I'd like you to put that up. And I want to get the feeling from others if they think you are looking a little bit like D-Day. Do you have him?
Yeah, hang on. Let me.
All right, let's see it.
Hang on,
Let's see it before we get to the Reds.
Huh.
Hold on. It's gonna take me a second to
Okay.
get him
All
pulled
right.
up.
Okay. All right. We're gonna have Cincy B, says Tom. That's funny. Split screen, real spirit cat. Yeah, I mean, that was such a great character and such a great movie. I just thought because we compared you to DiCaprio last week, and this week it's more D-Day.
Yeah, I think we're just trying to loosen the air a little bit before we bring up the mighty Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah.
Here's DJ.
Here he is. Let's see him.
Here's DJ.
There he is.
I like it. Yeah, that's definitely the look. That's the look.
I mean, you got that look. I mean, you got that definitely.
Yeah, I like it. I got to get me a pair of them shades. I like it.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for pulling that up. We're always trying to keep you entertained, even if it's complete sophomoric behavior around here. We're all about it. The Reds. I hate when the times show up that I sound like the old man get off my lawn. I really try very hard with young kids to not be that guy. But I find myself slipping into it sometimes, and I think some of you do too. I start with this 100 pitch thing. Dylan Cease the other day throws a no-hitter for the San Diego Padres. They let him go 114 pitches. Hunter Greene, from a straight physical standpoint, he's already been through Tommy John, we know that. From a physical standpoint, he is the most put-together, dominant body that there is in baseball for a starting pitcher in the game today. He is big, he is strong, and he right now is pitching beyond belief. Could make an argument that right now he's pitching better than Skeens. Skeens got knocked around his last start. Hunter's gone 15 straight innings, not giving up a run. Not one. And you mean to tell me, it's one thing if you have stressful innings. So if you get through the 7th, he didn't allow a hit yesterday till the 6th. If you're getting through 7 and, man, there's been a lot of stress, 1, 2 guys on, 2 or 3 innings, having to pitch out of jams and tough situations. This guy was on cruise control. And in a 1-0 game, he's taken out of the game with exactly 100 pitches. Now, if that is the new barometer now, and everybody's living by it, then maybe I sound like the old guy. But, I mean, you got to be kidding me.
Well, you sound like the old guy about Skeens because he was the one in his last outing who went over 8 innings and only gave up 2 runs. And that's what they should have done with Hunter Greene, was let him go. And I think you're spot on with Hunter Greene. Sub-3 ERA, and he went out and got it. You and I especially, we challenge Hunter Greene on this show, especially in rubber games, especially to start series. When you put your ace out there with a rotation as good as the Cincinnati Reds in a must-win game, you have to win series at this point of the year, especially when you save your ace till Sunday. He goes out, and he did not throw a gem. He threw an absolute ruby of a game. I mean, he was shoving all day on the road, and the lineup for the 3rd straight game, nothing. The defense gave him nothing. That is a heartbreaking
base
loss.
running.
Potentially the worst loss of the season.
Yes.
Because all of them mean the same, but if you won that series and you didn't play good baseball, they did not hit well, and you took 2 out of 3 on the road, you come back home, and you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday against the Cubs at home, a divisional series. You're coming off a series win. It's a lot different because this feels as must-win as they get, this first game of this Cubs series.
I feel like we've been saying that for a long time now. Whether it was at that homestand right before the All-Star break, sub-500 teams, 3 of them coming in, you go 5-5. Then everybody looking at this past road trip that just completed, right, where they get swept in D.C. They beat Atlanta 2. So they get 3 wins, but they drop 2 of the 3 series.
David Bell has no idea what he's doing either. Just some of these decisions. I talked about this last time, and I'm going to really double down on this take. I don't think he's a manager that can adequately manage a postseason baseball team. He's gotten the Reds to the point that he needed to get them to. They were 10 games above 500 at the deadline last year with a young and not very talented roster on paper. He did a heck of a job. But when it comes down to having to win games, I mean, the Lucas Sims decision just does not make sense on any level in the world. You don't even have to know the team. Just look at the numbers. The bases are loaded with 2 outs. And I love the way Nick Kirby said it. The Tampa Bay Rays aren't the greatest team in the world. They could give you an out. It's a force at every bag, too. That's one of the easiest outs in baseball. I know it's a high-pressure situation, which makes it even more insane to put in a guy who's strikeout or bust. It's pretty much strikeout or walk with Lucas Sims. I thought the catching situation on Fernando Cruz escaping that jam was a disaster on its own. I mean, you got to put your body in front of that ball. How are you on one knee and let that get by? I mean,
that's the thing. I've never seen it before in my life. Never seen it before in my life. With the bases loaded, and as the catcher, okay? It's not like it's a surprise. You know as the catcher what pitch is coming. And the goal of a good breaking ball is to get that thing to force the hitter to chase the pitch. So it's down and away from the hitter and a really good chance it's going to end up in the dirt. What in the world is he doing down on one knee? You've got to be in a so look, all of this comes down to, and remember now, it wasn't until last Friday where I said I was starting to wonder about the manager. Okay, everybody else has been hot and cold on the guy, okay? And I've just been watching some things here lately, and I say to myself, I just don't know anymore. I don't know. Not that I was ever all in on him, but I was certainly never all out. But the manager's job is really a couple of things, right? Your team to play fundamental baseball. Everybody that follows the Tampa Bay Rays, that's what they told us before this series. Now, they committed some errors in this series. They committed 3 of them yesterday. But by and large, they have been a team that smartly runs the bases, that plays excellent defense, and they are a fundamentally sound team in terms of its offensive approach, that they will put the ball in play. Okay? The Reds, they play down to their competition. They are not ready to play on a daily basis. Yeah, they get up for the Phillies and the Dodgers and the Yankees and Atlanta. They get up for all those guys. You can't explain with the same players. You can't explain being 12-6 or something like that against those 4 teams, which then means you're 11 games under 500 against everybody else. They're not ready to play. Now, you can blame some of that on youth. Fair. But then there's the fundamentals of the game. Who's to blame for that? That their defense is so, their base running is abysmal. It is absolutely brutal.
You know what I really do think it is, and I think yesterday summarized it, was I think it's a young, aggressive style ball club. They're aggressively managed. They steal bags.
Who?
The Reds.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes,
they do.
That is the way that they play. But they play scared. You can't play aggressive and scared. And I think yesterday really put that on full display. Whether it was their offense giving them 0 run support, because we wouldn't have this conversation right now. And the way the lineup was written. There was a lot of questions with all those right-handed batters. And to me, I saw that as David Bell not having confidence in his guys. The reason you keep left-handed bats on that team so that you're ready to go in certain situations. And I just thought a lot of yesterday was confusing all the way up until the end of the game where eventually you're going to lose. I think that the balloon just kind of grew and it was a rubber game and then pop.
All right, so what are they going to do? We just heard Charlie. The trade deadline is tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern time. It was a hell of a lot more fun when that thing went till midnight. For the life of me, why do they change these little things? It was so much more fun, and you'd stay up and pay attention to baseball until midnight when the trade deadline was midnight. And now it's tired, 6 o'clock, and sun's still out. Games haven't even started. Okay. What do they do now? Have they just decided this is a lost season? And, look, the injuries, I will forever say that David Bell has been hamstrung dramatically by the injuries. There's no doubt about that. But if you're going to say that on one end, you do also have to acknowledge that at the other end, you didn't think in a million years their starting pitching would be as good as it's been. And it has been really good, by and large, this entire season, as it was over the weekend. Abbott ran into trouble there on Saturday, but Lodolo was outstanding. Greene was sensational. What do they do now?
Well, I think you kind of...
You got to move India. Do you got to move it now?
No. I called for this.
I think you might.
The Reds' future is so bright. Why would you let... this is the stuff I'm saying with Reds fans. I can get hot and cold on David Bell and be very volatile in my opinions on the team on a day-by-day basis, but you have to have long-term vision when it comes to your future. We sat here on Friday's show, and I demanded the Reds do nothing. This isn't their year. You sit on your hands. If you get a couple pieces back and you catch fire and you go on a 12-game win streak, heck yeah, you're in the hunt.
That's right.
Go play with house money, because that's exactly what you have right now. I don't know why the Reds play so tight, acting like that they really have a chance at this point. They're 10-1 to make the playoffs. $100 wins you 1,000 on that bet. They are huge underdogs.
You got action on that, Casey?
No, I do not.
Luke, you got action on that?
Heck
you better
no.
not. You're not old enough.
Heck no. What I'm saying is save your pieces, wait till next year, and if you have a bad year next year, David Bell, get the heck out of town. I mean, pieces have to be made, or pieces have to be put in place to a plan for this team. And the plan is not making some move at the deadline. They're out of it right now. You're playing with house money, go win games, make a push for the playoffs. If you don't, you gear up for next season. That's where I'm at, personally. I don't have all the answers, but
no, I mean, look. I've said before, I'm a big Nick Kroll fan, both as a guy and the way he does his job. I was very hard on him last year when they did not make a deal. It was a year ago today. They were sitting in first place, 10 games over 500. But because of the poor starting pitching, their bullpen was just showing signs of cracking. We all knew that at the time. We said it right here on the show. And we also said that you never know what next year might bring. You might have 2 or 3 relievers that don't pitch as well. You might have 2 or 3 injuries. In their case, they've had more than 2 or 3. You never know if guys just aren't going to be as good. And, of course, none of us saw a suspension coming for Marte. But, you know, when you get the chance to win, and their chance to win may not be great right now for this year, but they got to start making stuff happen for this franchise in moving forward. Candelario has been an okay pickup. He was okay, but at least they went out and got him, and he's been okay. Would I give serious thought to moving him if I could get something? Absolutely. India, same thing. Would give serious thought to it. I would find a way, if you're going to start moving some pieces out, you got to give up something to get something.
And that's what the Cubs did.
That's what they did.
They pretty much said.
And the Diamondbacks.
They pretty much said. But the trade for 2 position players, I think, is an interesting one to look at, because the Cubs pretty much said, you know, Morel, you're well liked in our fan base. You're a Cub right now that isn't god awful. You weren't necessarily like all over the trade block, and we brought in someone that's better than you. That's pretty much what they said. It's a more complete player.
Yep.
That they traded him for. And I think a move like that for a team like the Cubs, from a locker room perspective, says, don't get too comfortable in Chicago. I know we're playing in front of sold-out crowds, but I think Craig Counsell in that front office is saying, hey, Christopher Morel, you know, you're a big hit in Chicago. You hit a couple bombs every now and then, but 220 does not cut it. We want 260, and that's what they did. I think a move like that in the Reds clubhouse could spark something, but sounds like you and I, Dad, are on a different approach here. I'm sitting on your hands. The Reds have a bright future. You trust the future.
I'm not saying, no, I thought all along they should do nothing unless you trade some of the players that are going to leave you at the end of the year.
Yeah, like if they move Montas, I'm not going to be like, they're screwed.
And I mean, I think about some of these relievers. If somebody else wants them, great. I think that Fernando Cruz, as good as he's been, this was a guy that I mean, he had nowhere to go 2 years ago. I got to think about it. All right. We've got, is Kenner here today?
No Kenner. It's going to be Reed hosting today.
Reed Mouse.
Reed Mouse.
Yep. On Off the Bench.
That's right.
And let's see, who else is that back there? Jacob, Jimmy, right?
And then me. I think that's the show.
That'll be big league.
Looks like Reed's doing a little bit of his, like LeBron James pregame ritual where you get the baby powder and throw it in the air.
Yeah.
He's ready to go today. He's taking the big seat.
Reed's dialed in.
He's dialed in.
Dialed in.
All right. Well, this is dialed in. We thank you for joining us. And Off the Bench is coming up right now on Chatterbox Sports. Here we go!
The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Well, hello and good morning. Oh, baby. It's a rainy and gloomy Monday here in Southwest Ohio. I'm Reed Mouse sitting in for Justin Kenner, and though it's raining outside, it's a lovely day to talk sports. Just like Kenner kicked me off the show, I'm kicking him off for a day. Let's rock and roll, baby. We've got the trade deadline looming large for the Cincinnati Reds and the rest of Major League Baseball. The Reds start play with the division rival tonight, the Chicago Cubs. I'm going to try and make it down for a couple of games. I promise I'm not going to do the Cubs thing on the show today. We've also, men, we've got the National Football League starting play this Thursday.
It's exciting.
Hall of Fame game.
Yeah,
of course, we have the Olympics that are in full swing and all the sports you know. But today on the show, we're going to talk about what I think the Reds should have one question to ask themselves whenever you as fans of the Reds are, thinking about performing a trade here at the trade deadline. I'm going to give my opinion on David Bell, which I've given it before, but now that I've got a microphone in front of my face, I feel like I get a chance to reiterate it, especially based on what happened yesterday, which was absolutely hideous. We're going to talk about the Sam Hubbard news, which has kind of given the opportunity to talk about what I think could be the biggest piece for the Cincinnati Bengals this year. And before we get to my monologue, which I always start off, let's welcome in the crew Mr. Alabama, Ohio State himself, Jacob Tisset.
How we doing?
I'm doing great. It's nice to see your lovely face.
It's good to see you over there on the desk.
I liked it when I was over. I like the desk over. It's a different juxtaposition, but now I get to look at Casey's lovely face and lovely mustache.
Stash Bros.
Yeah, Casey, what's up with the mustache? You still in my look?
Maybe I just took a look at your handsome face and said, I want to be like Reed Mouse. And that's what I did.
You'd be the first person to ever propose that. I want to be like Reed Mouse, because I don't think that's never been said before. Jimbo, look at you.
How are you? I'm good. Yeah. I'm excited. It was the NFL is pushing this new thing Back Together weekend, and I believe that was this past weekend. Mm-hmm. I had never heard of it before until I saw like a montage video of NFL's Back Together weekend. Looks like fans are turning out to training camp, so I'm excited. I'm enjoying the videos of the NFL training camps more and more every day.
The NFL is funny because baseball for the longest time had this kind of thing, countdown till the pitchers and catchers report, and then it's like countdown to the first game of spring training, and then it's really like, hey, countdown to the regular season. It's starting to feel like that for football, to where like, countdown to training camp, countdown to the first preseason game, and at the end of it all, we still kind of know, who cares about the preseason games? Let's just get us to week one. Let's start this thing. But, guys, it feels good to be back here in this desk before I fade into obscurity once again, because Kenner did kick me off the show, as we all know. It's well documented. But there's something that's been looming over my head for the past few weeks when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals, and it's pretty much since Joe Burrow sat down on Pardon My Take, and he had a quote saying that when you don't play, people forget about you, and I think that's where the Cincinnati Bengals are as a team. They're at a crossroads. And to be honest, they have been for the last 2 years. It just feels like we're kicking the can down the road. We keep saying this is the biggest offseason in our lifetime for the Cincinnati Bengals. We keep saying this is the biggest season in our lifetime for the Cincinnati Bengals, and as you keep kicking the can down the road, it takes shape as it clinks and clunks down the pavement, and it forms into something new. And my question for this season is, what is at stake? And I think I know what it is, and it's unfortunately obscurity. Now, I know what you're saying here. For most of my life, the Bengals have been a blip on, the national media, National Football League's radar. One of the smaller fan bases. Yeah, they've had success, but not in the postseason. Even with generational talents like Carson Palmer, and he was a generational talent, with personalities like Chad Johnson, with what we had at the beginning of the 2010s where we made 5 consecutive postseasons, it feels like the Cincinnati Bengals weren't respected by the rest of the league. And I get why. I do get why. Even though we play in one of the toughest, if not the toughest division, and have competed very well in it. I don't think people realize how good we do here in Cincinnati, but I don't think people outside of Cincinnati realize just how good the Bengals have been in the AFC North. They remember teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers. They remember teams like the Baltimore Ravens. But the Bengals, at least in the consciousness of national media, was closer to the Browns than those teams. And we know that's not the case, but that's how we were thought of. So if that's how people think of you, that's kind of how you are, unfortunately. That's how life is. Then the Cincinnati Bengals get Joe Burrow. Then they get Jamar Chase. And yeah, there's a cult of personality that comes with Joe Burrow. He's handsome, he dresses nice, he suddenly speaks, and when he does speak, people listen. You got Jamar Chase doing the gritty in the end zone. All of a sudden, Colin Cowherd, Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless, Dan Patrick, they're talking about our Cincinnati Bengals. And it's not entirely because we are cool. We're cool. Still are cool. That's not going to change. It's because the Cincinnati Bengals were winning. They're winning postseason games. They're winning division titles once again. And that's what I'm worried about. And I think that's what Joe is a little worried about too. At least that's what he said in that interview is, last year people were saying Joe Burrow's the second best quarterback in the National Football League. Then he gets hurt for the second time a season-ending injury. And he said, hey, when you don't play, people kind of forget about you. Well, when you don't win, you kind of fade into the back. People stop caring. All that's been accomplished by our Bengals won't be forgotten, at least not here in town. Going to the Super Bowl, moments away from winning. Going back to the AFC Championship game. Beating Patrick Mahomes in the postseason. Joe Burrow's one of 2 quarterbacks to do that. The other guy is the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady. But you look at this Bengals team, and we've seen several teams do this. We've seen several teams come and go. Carolina Panthers, Atlanta Falcons, where they're at the top of the game for a year or 2, like the Bengals were, 2 straight years. Everyone said, hey, can the Bengals repeat what they just did in the Super Bowl? And they did. They got back to the AFC Championship game. We're moments away from beating the eventual Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs. But can they get back to being Super Bowl contenders again? True Super Bowl contenders. I'm not talking 9-8. I'm not talking whatever the Browns did last year where they get in the postseason and then get absolutely waxed by a team. I'm not talking that. I'm talking true contenders, the way that they were. That's what is at stake this year. And it doesn't have to be going down the line in the AFC Championship against the Kansas City Chiefs to get us back there. It doesn't have to go that far. But I fear that if the Bengals aren't what they were 2 years ago, we are no longer the team that the Kansas City Chiefs are afraid of. We're no longer that Joe Burrow, he's one of the best in the league. We no longer got that. It's no longer, hey, what teams can win the Super Bowl? It's the Chiefs and the 49ers and, oh, yeah, the Cincinnati Bengals if they get hot. We're no longer that. We are just there. That's what I'm afraid of. And that's what's at stake here. I don't want to put it all on the thing because we want a Joe Burrow healthy. We've got other things to worry about. But the crossroads are pretty clear. Can the Cincinnati Bengals get back to what they once were? Can they cement themselves? Can Joe Burrow cement himself as a top quarterback in this league? Can the Cincinnati Bengals with Joe, with Jamar, have no questions, leave no doubt to what he once said, which is the window is my career? I believe it. But can we convince the rest of the league? Can we do that? You've got to – the greats – don't come and go. They don't go up and down. It's not a roller coaster. They're here to stay. They keep the throttle down. They're constant contenders. Aaron Rodgers, everyone says, oh, he's only been to 1 Super Bowl. Yeah, but he's been to 6 NFC championships. That's what I want. I just want to keep the throttle down. I want to leave no doubt for all the naysayers, and they are growing by the day. They are growing by the day, the naysayers. Joe Burrow is overrated. The Bengals are overrated. Well, let's prove them wrong. Guys, as I turn it to you as we round out this segment, am I going a little overboard here? Am I worrying about things that we shouldn't worry about? Or is it truly that we are against the time of, hey, are we just a blip in, the dozens of teams that have lost in the Super Bowl and, maybe won a division after that? Or are we going to continue to be contenders? Is that something justifiable for me to worry about?
I think it definitely is, and something I'm starting to worry about a little bit as well. I mean, we heard when Joe went to the Super Bowl the first time, this litany of quarterbacks that went once and never went back and never had another chance. And that led off with Dan Marino, who obviously had a great career, went to the Super Bowl early in his career and never got back, never won one. And he's still recognized as an all-time great, and so many guys that don't have rings are. But that's not what any of us want Joe Burrow to be. And I think at some point you start to get a little bit worried that might be what he becomes. And I think the window, you like to say that it is his whole career, but there's only one guy in NFL history whose window has actually been his whole career, and that's Tom Brady. Every other quarterback, no matter how great they've been, have had a window that's closed. Peyton Manning happened to win a Super Bowl after his window closed because he had one of the best defenses of all time in Denver. But most quarterbacks have a 5, if you're really good, 7-year window. And I think Joe certainly has that. I'd put him at the top of some of the most talented quarterbacks that I've ever seen play. So I have faith in Joe for at least multiple years after this year. I don't necessarily think it's win a Super Bowl this year or you're done. No, I know that's not necessarily what you're saying, but I think we need to stay in the mix. We need to stay in the AFC Championship. Or if you lose to, a dominant Bills team or a Chiefs team or someone who's going to go on and win a Super Bowl. You can't make it and lose by 40 to the Houston Texans who then get blown out the next week. That's not a way you stay in the conversation. So, yeah, I think it's definitely something to worry about, and people might call you crazy for going there already, but I think, it's something you should think about.
You've got to remember, too, that because we are fans of the Cincinnati Bengals, which out of the 32 teams probably is the 30th biggest fan base, you go north of Dayton, not a whole lot of Bengals fans. You go west of here, not a whole lot of Bengals. You go east, south, wherever you go, there's not a whole lot of Bengals fans except for this very specific area. So it's easy. It's harder for us to stay in the picture in terms of the consciousness of people that talk about the sport. The Jets, they get Aaron Rodgers. They win 3 games. They're going to be talking about this team like they're Super Bowl contenders. The Chicago Bears, all it takes is Caleb Williams to throw 4 touchdowns week 1 and because you want to push that. The Dallas Cowboys, doesn't take a whole lot for you to go overboard and say, this team's here. But with the Bengals, it takes a little more. And we recognize that. It's just, and it's not down to a 1-year time frame, but you have to constantly be there. You have to constantly be talked about as that team, or else we won't be talked about again. Until like if this year is a wash, 8-9 with a healthy Joe Burrow, it's going to take the Bengals to win 13 games the next season to be considered serious. Casey, as a Bengals fan, do you think that I am overboard here? Do you think I'm overboard?
No, I don't think you're overboard. If they even personally, if they don't make it past the wild card round, or if they don't even really make it, I won't say divisional. That's pushing it a little bit. If they don't make it past the wild card round, I'm going to be very disappointed. Very disappointed, because it'll feel like that this team had that window of opportunity and they let it slip through their fingers. It's just simple as that. And I get that many of you will say that it is Joe Burrow's entire career, and you are somewhat correct. You have an opportunity to win because you have a quarterback, but it's so much more than that. To win a Super Bowl, you need a team. You need a great team. And that's been proven, I think, time and time again. It's not just about the quarterback. It's about what you have, the pieces around you. And Bengals have lost pieces since going to their Super Bowl. Yeah. And you could point back to that and say, yeah, that was the window. So, yeah, I don't think it's entirely crazy to think that the window could be possibly closing. To be able to stay relevant, you need to win ball games. As simple as that. I think people will always say Joe Burrow is a great quarterback. I think people will always talk about Jamar Chase. But will they talk about our team being a legitimate Super Bowl contender for his entire career? I don't think so. They got to continue to win in order for that to happen.
Jimbo?
Yeah, I mean, last season was obviously tough for Bengals fans. Joe Burrow went down, and obviously
I think I'm higher on last season than most Bengals fans. Going
as you should be. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, going 9-8 with a healthy quarterback for 4 games and playing one of the hardest schedules in NFL history. That's something to write home about.
And I think after a good couple of years to be a Bengals fan, they made the Super Bowl and then the AFC Championship game. Having a season like that, it kind of brings you back down to earth, I would say, as a fan, which then coming into the next season is like, oh, well, what if it was only those 2 years? Which is, I say that I think about that's fair to think about because the Bengals aren't the most winning organization of all time.
What a shot, but go on.
Yeah. I mean, not like my team is either. But
your team certainly isn't.
No, certainly not. But at the end of the day, they still are. They're tied for 5th in Super Bowl odds right now, so they're still very much there.
Right.
Like, it's a very good roster that should have expectations this year, and I think as long as you have Joe Burrow on the team, I think that you should have expectations because you need a great quarterback to win in the NFL. And if he's here, you have a great quarterback, and he's going to give you a chance to win every single year.
He's going to give us and that's the idea, is that the window is truly his whole career. And we hope that has happened. It's not just Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase that have kind of created a core and a championship level core that I believe for the local teams. I think that the Cincinnati Reds have one of the best cores in entire Major League Baseball. We'll get to that when we come back. You're listening to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers here on 1410 Wing AM. And we are back here on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, 1410 Wing AM. Thank you for being here. Reed Mouse in hosting in place of Justin Kenner. He'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow is the trade deadline is tomorrow, correct? I believe it's the 30th, or is it Wednesday?
30th.
I was going to say tomorrow at 4 p.m. is the trade deadline. People expect the Reds to make some moves, and we'll talk about that later on in this segment. But there's something that, as a non-Reds fan, I've got to admit something, and I'm going to do something that you guys think that I would never do on the show, and I'm going to gas up the Cincinnati Reds for a second. I am entirely jealous. I am incredibly jealous of the centerpieces of this Reds franchise. And the two guys I'm talking about, who I think still in some circles still doesn't get the proper credit, which, to be honest, is a little sickening based on what they've done this year. And that's what the Cincinnati Reds have between Elly De La Cruz and Hunter Greene. That core, and I know in baseball it's not like basketball where 2 to 3 pieces can win you a championship. It's not like football where you get a quarterback and you get a wide receiver or a tight end and the rest just falls into place, and that is championship level. But I believe that with Hunter Greene and Elly De La Cruz as your focal points, as your stud position player, your superstar position player, Elly De La Cruz, and Hunter Greene as your ace, that is championship level worthy. I truly believe that. This core isn't, they're not AA batteries powering your Xbox controller so you can play NCAA Football 25. I don't even think they make chargers or controllers that use batteries anymore. They're not the AA batteries that light your emergency flashlight when it's a tornado and the power's out. This core is a hydrogen bomb. Elly De La Cruz is going to hit 30 home runs this year. Elly De La Cruz is going to steal upwards of 80 bases. He makes plays out at shortstop that no one else in the league can make. And to be honest, I saw it last night in the Discord. CJ Efflers, God bless you. He said, yeah, no one else can make that play that Ellie made yesterday, but he shouldn't be making that play. I think Elliott had that same take when they played in Seattle earlier this year. What are we talking about? He has to make that play because no one else is going to make it. When teams get ready to play the Cincinnati Reds, they look at the probable pitching matchups, and they know they're at a disadvantage when Hunter Greene's on the bump. He's got a sub-3 ERA. Pitching half his games at Great American Ballpark with bad defense. He strikes out over 10 batters per 9 innings. And what was the one complaint coming into this year about Hunter Greene? When he signed a deal where he's getting paid under $10 million a year, is that, he doesn't go deep enough into ball games. Oh, here's Mr. Hunter Greene, 110 pitches in the 4th inning. He goes deeper than any guy in the Reds rotation right now. He's the one certify, hey, you're going to get 6, 7 innings from him when he's on the bump. Like I said, team circle, hey, we got Hunter Greene on Tuesday night. That's not a good matchup for us. And when Elly De La Cruz is at the plate, who in baseball do you fear more? If he gets on base, he's in scoring position. A guy that's going to hit 30 home runs. A guy that's going to get on base at a 35% clip. And like I said, anytime he's on, he's one base hit away from scoring because he's going to take second. And he's going to score on a ball in the gap or a single. It's what happens. You worry as a pitcher. I would love to see pitchers when Elly hits in the inning, what their numbers are like. If they walk more guys. Because they're worried about Elly getting on base, or they're worried about Elly taking second. They've got to pay credence to that. This team needs a lot more. And, we'll talk about how this team could improve here at the trade deadline tomorrow. But at the center point, being a 22-year-old superstar and a 24-year-old ace, this team is starting to scare the National League. And you might think that's crazy because of their record, because of the pieces. Like I said, I know it's baseball. I know you need 4, 5, 6 guys to really be contenders. But it's a heck of a good start. Do you think that they get proper credit even here in this town, Elly De La Cruz and Hunter Greene?
No, I don't think so. I mean, until this year when they were both All-Stars, it seemed like they were trying to be torn down every step of the way. I mean, even at the beginning of this year, people wanted Elly sent down to, AAA. Casey still wants him sent down. So we don't know what's going on with that. But no, in all seriousness, it's weird, I think. I don't know why, as a fan base that doesn't get great things that happens to it very often, why aren't we latching on to these two guys? Hunter Greene's having a month right now as a pitcher that's unbelievable. I mean, his last 30 games, he is an ERA below 3. He's playing on another level right now.
Right.
And people still, are finding ways to get mad at him. Last night, it's he comes out of the game after 100 pitches. He doesn't have, he doesn't have the dog in him to tell David Bell not to take him out. What more do you want out of this guy?
24 years old.
What more do you want? And Elly's just been on fire as well. And people, will complain about the defense, and now he's, taking plays from other guys. Why? If he can make a play, he should make every play on the field. Every single one.
He's like, have you ever seen the Bad News Bears? Ever seen that movie?
Yeah.
At one point, they tell the shortstop, hey, you got to catch everything. That's Elly. And you know what? That gives credit to Hunter Greene as well. And I said it earlier. He has a sub-3 ERA with a bad defensive team and the most hitter-friendly ballpark in the league. That's incredible. And don't get mad at Elly De La Cruz for making that play out in left field because it's someone else's ball. He's the only one that got there. Call him off. Left fielder, when he's coming in to make the play, he calls off the shortstop. Call him off. It's the people. Explain to me like I'm 5. The people that want Elly De La Cruz to be an outfielder. How does that make sense?
Yeah, I can't wrap my head around people that want him anywhere other than shortstop. I mean, he's 5th in outs above average from shortstop this year. I mean, I get it that he leads the league in errors and he needs to clean that up. Imagine how amazing he's going to be as a defender when he fields a routine ground ball. If he's already a top 5 defender with all these errors. Like the ceiling for this guy at shortstop is maybe something we've never seen before athletically. Mm-hmm. And you want to move him to a less valuable position because you think his arm's cool? Like, I don't get it at all. And people want to put him in center field because they think he has good range. Then you're just begging for him to get hurt.
Right.
Why would you have him run into a wall more often than you have to? I mean, he's everything for this Reds team. And when you talk about the core and how you're optimistic about the core, and I am too, I think healthy, this team is much, much better than they've been playing like. And I think, we've been saying that for months now. But this team goes as Elly De La Cruz goes. I mean, if he's going to be a superstar like we all think he can be, this Reds team can be really good with some of the pieces that we already have. If he's not going to be that, then this Reds team ceiling isn't very high. So I don't know why Reds fans wouldn't just get all the way behind Elly De La Cruz, because that's just getting behind the team at this point. It's the same thing.
We do this in town. We do this with the Reds. I don't think we do this with the Bengals as much. To where the best player on the team is open to the most criticism. And I get that. I mean, that's actually a pretty well thought out way to run a team, to run an organization, to run really anything, is that when you hold the highest player, the best, your best employee, your best student in the class, your best player, when you hold them to the highest level of accountability, you're kind of setting up by leading by example. But I think that it's one thing for a team to do that, and it's another thing for fans. And you get on Reds Facebook, which might be the most toxic place other than Pripyat, Ukraine. It's just crazy that these guys are still getting criticized for things that are easily made up for in the other ways that they play. Yes, Elly De La Cruz leads the league in errors. But for every error that he makes a play that no one else in baseball can. And with age, I truly believe that those errors will get cleaned up. And even if they don't, that's okay. That's fine. Because he's still one of the best defenders in the league. And what about, he strikes out way too much, Elly De La Cruz? He's getting on base 35% of the time. Can you imagine if I told you when Elly De La Cruz came up last year, that where he had an on-base percentage in 98 games of 300, that improved by 50 points? What you would tell me, you would take it in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. And here he is. He's going to hit near 30 home runs. He's going to steal another 85 bases. I just think that the Reds are set up in a position that few teams, if any teams in Major League Baseball currently have. And that is a no-doubt superstar that I think that if you call up every team, every GM in baseball, and said, I'll trade you Elly De La Cruz for this player, I'll trade you Elly De La Cruz, you might get 5 no's in the entire league. And I'm not going to do the list. Bobby Witt, Gunnar. I'm not going to do that list right now. But you might get 5 no's. Because that's how special he is. And it's only, I'm here to tell you, it's only going to get worse. When he signs the inevitability, which is a 10-year contract, I think that's an inevitability because you got to. Mm-hmm. When he signs that, the criticisms are just going to get worse. But don't worry about things that are in-house. Because the Reds do truly have a core. And it's going to dominate. When Hunter Greene's on the mound, he's going to continue to get better. Elly De La Cruz is going to continue to get better. And it takes a lot of pieces to win in baseball. It really does. I mean, look at the Los Angeles Angels. At one point, they had the best player of the 2000s, the best player of the 2010s, and what will certainly be the best player of the 2020s in Shohei Ohtani. They had all 3 pieces on the same team. They won 75 games. So that's where baseball's tough. But if you look at what you got in your basket between Shohei Ohtani, or Elly De La Cruz, and Hunter Greene, they're set up in a way that no other team in the National League Central is. They're set up in a way that no other team in National League is. Casey, thoughts on the Cincinnati Reds core?
I just wish you never said anything about the Angels there at the end. I was with you all the way. I'm like, yes, this core. Yes, I'm ready to go. Fire me up. I believe. And then you said the Angels, and that just made me just crumble because I would hate for that to actually happen. Because, like you said, there's a lot of things that have to go right for this Reds team to be something special, or what we want it to be, something very competitive. do we have enough pieces? Clearly not. But you're right. Ellie De La Cruz, Hunter Greene, and even guys that have like Lodolo, Abbott, Matt McClain, we've yet to see him play, but we have lots of hope for him. I would make arguments for guys like Steer. Like, these are all pieces that you feel very comfortable with. Like, you know that this team has a core together that you can rock with. You just got to find the rest of the pieces to the puzzle, right? You have this jigsaw puzzle, and it's almost complete. It's what? 95,
I wouldn't say almost
80?
complete, but it's. Let me put it this way: if the jigsaw puzzle is a 100-piece puzzle, the two pieces that they currently have take up 80% of it.
Correct.
They've got a lot of other pieces to fill in.
They just found a really big piece.
Right. They've got a large portion of that puzzle figured out, though.
Yeah. So that's basically where the Reds are right now, and it's unfortunate that it's just not yielded any crazy results right now. They're 5 games below 500, but you just gotta have continued faith that they've got the core together and they've got that right. Otherwise, I don't know what you have. Mm-hmm. So I will continue to have faith in Ellie De La Cruz. I know I do my bit about Chattanooga. Maybe I'll stop doing that when he hits 30 home runs because he'll give me a big
that's
payout.
The line.
That's the line for me.
Ellie goes 30-80 and he can finally play in the majors.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get a huge payout after that. So, yeah. But, yeah, this team, I have lots of belief in the core. It's just the rest of the pieces that we need to figure out. And I'm sure that many of you in the chat feel like the Reds are inept in doing so. I would argue that if they've got this core figured out, they were able to get this core put together the way it is right now, that you have to have continued faith in them to be able to figure out the rest of the puzzle.
Jimmy, anything to add on?
Yeah, I think that Reds fans know that they have the core, and that's, I feel like, what has made them so confident, because people outside of Reds Nation have kind of told them that this team it's a solid core and they're going to have success. But then obviously you want to have that success now. But it's going to take time. These guys need at bats. They need games to grow together to eventually be the contending team that you want them to be. And I think that they're set up for that. I think obviously it all starts with Ellie De La Cruz in the field and at the plate, and then Hunter Greene on the mound. I think the Hunter Greene thing has become so maddening to me. His past 5 starts, he's been phenomenal, and he's led up two earned runs in his last 5 starts, and they've won 2 of those 5 games.
Yeah,
and I think I feel for him. I think that he's not really getting. You're not seeing in the stat in the win column, I should say. You're not seeing in the win column what he's done to set you up for success. But at the end of the day, I think part of that is just this Reds team needs time. They need more games. They need to grow together to then capitalize on these opportunities that Hunter Greene is giving them to win these ball games. He's in his last 2 starts, no earned runs against Tampa Bay and Atlanta. They split. And then in the 2 before that, he had 1 earned run against Colorado, in which they won 8-1. And then no earned runs in 7 shutout innings against the Tigers, which they would later give up 5 in the next inning from Fernando Cruz, which they would lose. And then the start before that in St. Louis, 1 earned run in the game where they lost 2-0. So I think that you're not really seeing in the win column what he's doing for this team, but he's phenomenal, and there's no signs of him slowing down at all. I think that this Reds team is set up for success, and I know it's frustrating that they're sitting 5 games and they're probably going to sell at the deadline. But just give it a little bit more time. Get some guys back, and I'm very confident this Reds team will be a winning ball club in the next 1 to 2 years.
That's certainly what they're hoping for, and that leads us into the next segment. Is when we're approaching this trade deadline, what is one question you got to ask yourself when it's with the casual conversation with other Reds fans? What the Reds front office is certainly asking themselves, and it's that question when we come back from the break. We'll be right back on 1410 Wing AM. And we are back here on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Reed Mouse, Jacob Tissett, Jimmy Collins, Casey McCollister here. I hope Ellie's having fun on his vacation. He'll be back next week, but we've got a fun rest of the show for you guys. We talked about the Bengals in the first segment. We talked about the Reds last segment. I think we're going to talk about Reds here for a little longer before going back onto the gridiron to talk about the Sam Hubbard injury and what it can mean. And it's pretty positive things coming out of Bengals camp about that injury. But we'll get to that later on in the show. Trade deadline is tomorrow, 4 p.m. And it's been a topic of conversation for a month about what this Cincinnati Reds team can do. And it's been a divisive one, to say the least, because it constantly shifts. There's so many teams that think that they are in this playoff hunt. The Reds currently sit 5 games back from the final wild card spots. And that's being 5 games under 500. But that's how close it is. And their chance to make the postseason, according to Fangraphs, is like 5%. And it doesn't feel like this team has what it takes to over-topple 8-9 teams in the National League. But that's what fans are hoping out for. So the question has been, do the Reds buy? Do they sell? And as we get closer, as tomorrow is the deadline, it's seeming more likely in the things that have come out that the Reds will be parting with some of its pieces, some of the pieces that have made this team, Jonathan India, some of the relievers. And the question that I think that you should ask yourself, the question that I think that you should be taking into consideration anytime you propose a trade is simply this. And I'm not breaking any new ground by saying this. Everyone knows this. It's simply, is what the Reds do, does this trade that the Reds should take into consideration, does it make them better next year? Does it make them better 2 years from now? Does it make them better in 2025 plus? That's the only question you should ask yourself. Does getting rid of Jonathan India, who has played fantastic and he'd be here next year, he's under team control for another year, does getting rid of him make them better next year? Does it make them better going forward? Certainly makes them worse this year, but that's beside the point. Can you find pieces that make the Reds more competent next year? And I'm not saying that this season is a wash, though it's largely heading in that direction. And that's maybe at no one's fault other than whatever God takes care of injuries. But you've got to be real about what this team is, what this season is. And it seems not fun to look at the final 2 months and just go, hey, we're going to get rid of a lot of pieces here. And, maybe they play well in the next two months. Maybe they don't. But we've really got to start looking at the window of what this team looks like for 2025. I'll take it. I said I wasn't going to do any Cubs stuff here. But everyone anticipated them to sell, and I still think that they will part with some pieces. But I'd wondered, looking at the Cubs, I said, hey, all these players are going to be back next year. Are you willing to just give up what you have next year? Well, they get rid of the guy that hit 30 home runs in Christopher Morel. And they say, hey, I think this makes us better, not only this year, but next year. Can the Reds do a trade like that to where you get a player under team control for years to come? To where, hey, we still look at 2025 as a chance to compete. And they should, because of the same reasons that we talked about in the last segment, which are guys like Ellie De La Cruz, guys like Hunter Greene, some guys that are hurt that are coming back from injury. Matt McLean, hopefully he can come back, and you have up the middle a team that is as good as anybody. Can this piece that we are going to look for have us ready to go to compete next year? You're not going to get a whole lot for the relievers. I'm sorry to tell you. I know that's the easiest pieces to part with, but you're just simply not going to get a whole lot except for maybe an Alexis Diaz. You might get some considerable pull for him. But Fernando Cruz, Buck Farr, all these pieces that you got, you're not going to get a whole lot. And to the fact that they're either going to be young guys that don't come up for 3-4 years, or they're just not going to be large impact players next year. So, Jacob, as someone who has their ear to the floor much more better than I have for the Cincinnati Reds, what are you willing to look at this trade deadline and say, hey, I'm okay with this piece leaving because it makes us better next year?
I'm okay with a lot of pieces leaving, and I think the name that you threw out is the one that I'm most interested right now, and that's Alexis Diaz. You've seen a lot of relievers and pitchers get dealt for massive returns, much higher than were expected, pretty much across the board so far this trade deadline. And with Alexis Diaz, you don't really know where this team's at. I mean, you're punting on this season. You don't know necessarily how competitive you're going to be next year, and relievers are so fickle, and you don't know how Alexis Diaz can. He's been so much better recently, but he started the season off so bumpy, and Reds fans as a whole seem to be out on him as a long-term closer anyway. So I would look at trading him and seeing the value. Another name I wouldn't be terribly mad at if they just explored the value is Andrew Abbott. You drafted Chase Burns. You expect him to be up soon. You drafted Rhett Lauder. You expect him to be up soon. You already have said Brandon Williamson in your organizational philosophy is higher on the totem pole than Andrew Abbott. Then that kind of leaves you with the where does he go type of thing. And you can't pitch much better than Andrew Abbott has pitched this year. And he's obviously a great third arm for our starters with a healthy Lodolo and how great Hunter Greene's been. But with the way the deadline's been going this year, I would be pretty interested to see what a return for a guy like Andrew Abbott would look like.
We've done this now for 2 years. Jonathan India playing the best ball of his career. The Reds would be a better team with him on the team next year, depending on what they get, no?
Depending on what they get. The whole Jonathan India conversation is incredibly dependent on what the return is. And with what the Mariners got, or what the Rays got from the Mariners for Randy Arozarena, that didn't exactly get me, super excited to trade Jonathan India. And again, one of the teams that have been circled for him is the Mariners. So I really don't know. And then the Yankees trading for Jazz kind of knocks them off because you'd think Jazz is going to lead off and play second base for them, which is the role India was looking to fill. I still think India is one of the best bats on the market.
No doubt about that.
But I don't know that the value is going to be as high as just having him as a bench piece next year with a healthy McLean at second, and you can rotate him in and move guys around. I think that'd be fine. I mean, you were talking about in spring training this year going into the season, they were, trying him out at first and third, getting him fly balls in the outfield. And obviously, with the way injuries progressed and the way the offseason went, he just went back to second base, has been playing there every day. But I think as long as you explore those other positions for him and where else you can kind of fit him in the team, because this year he's proved that his bat is viable enough to find somewhere to play him. So I think you work through that in the offseason if the trade value is not right. But yeah, I really don't think he's going to get moved this year, but I'd be pretty happy if he does for the right price.
What is best case scenario for Jonathan India where he's at right now? Is it you trade him for a top 10 prospect of an organization or two? Or is his best value that he plays like he did this year, just multiple positions next year? What is your dream scenario for what happens with Jonathan India?
I think I would rather trade him for a top prospect that contributes quickly. I'm not asking to trade Jonathan India for a lottery ticket that's going to be up here in 3 years.
Right.
I'm trying to trade him for a guy that we firmly believe is going to be up here and contribute in the next year or two. So, yeah, I think that's crucial. But I just think Jonathan India is much closer to the last 2 years than he is to this year long term, both as a bat and defensively. He's made a massive leap this year defensively, and I don't know how sustainable that is. I'm certainly not playing him over Matt McLean at second base, and I don't know how that's going to translate to other positions. I mean, we drafted him as a third baseman and moved him to second because he couldn't get the ball to first. So I don't know how great his future is on this team at a different position. So I think if you can convince everyone else that he's a starting second baseman and someone will trade you top value for that right now, I think you almost have to take it.
Andrew Abbott was an interesting name that I didn't even think about. But that is, when you look at what's coming up, Rhett Lauder, Chase Burns, and you've already got guys that you have pretty much penciled in for the future, and Nick Lodolo and Hunter Greene, where do you start folding out the rest of that rotation? That's interesting. But I think the Jonathan India one is one that you can feel comfortable no matter what decision they make, whether it be trade them away for some prospects, unless you get a return that is pretty much panned universally. Where you're like, wow, I thought we'd get a lot more for Jonathan India. That stinks. But I think also you can't argue that him on the opening day roster next year doesn't make the Reds a better team. The trading Jonathan India for a guy that's, MLB ETA is 2027, that doesn't really jive. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense because this team is ready to compete, I think, next year and the year after that. At least they consider that. So trading it down and just moving back the window, I don't get that, especially with an Ellie De La Cruz to where if he doesn't get an extension, the time is ticking before he goes somewhere else. But Andrew Abbott's interesting. I think Jonathan India is in a spot where you can go pretty much anything. Casey, Jimbo, anything that you are nervous, anything that you are excited, anything that you are just keeping your eye really close for when it comes to this trade deadline tomorrow?
I mean, I think we're all in agreement we want something that's going to help us in the 2025 and the future. I guess the window is 2025 and maybe early 2026 is the type of players that we're looking at to potentially help this team out. I don't know. I'm obviously not as well versed as Nick Kirby and Trace are in terms of what our prospect list looks like. I was just looking at it this morning, trying to get a feel for where we're at in terms of that, how it looks going to the future. Any of these guys going to help us out in 2025? I don't know how accurate these ETAs are, to be honest with you. So this might be just like silliness coming from me. But I look at guys like Cam Collier, Edwin Arroyo, and you try to think and piece together what the infield looks like in the future. And I'm wondering if maybe like you just kind of pick one of those guys and say, okay, we don't really know what these guys are going to end up being like. We can get someone that we know can help us out in 2025 and just trade one of them away. Maybe you combine that with a package with one of the relievers, or maybe you do start looking at Andrew Abbott. I didn't even consider Andrew Abbott being a guy that they might trade away. That to me was just way out of left field. But it makes sense. It makes sense what you're going to do when you have all these guys that you just drafted coming up in the future. I don't know. This is a really, really strange time in terms of what the Reds should do and what makes sense for them. I honestly would just stay pat because I think, like we already discussed, the core is there.
I think staying pat is a
bad decision.
You think it's a bad decision?
I mean, they're gonna get rid of some relievers. I think that's certainly, but that doesn't move the needle unless it's an Edwin.
I just don't think that there's anything that they're going to, like you already said, that they're not going to be able to get something that's going to help them out in 2025. I'm just going to wait until the offseason, and then I'll make my decision there unless to maybe go get a free agent or something like that. Maybe that's when they finally go all in and they say, all right, we're going to start stacking up some guys in free agency here. Maybe they look at maybe trading away Montas, getting off of that contract. I don't know. There's a lot of different things that they could do to improve this team 2025. I don't think they should make a push for this year. And I think 2027 and beyond is out of the question. So they're like in this weird middle ground. And I just don't know what the best course of action is for that.
Yeah. I think the one guy I'm kind of looking at, obviously, you're going to probably get rid of some relievers like Alexis Diaz or Fernando Cruz. That's just teams do that.
Alexis Diaz, I think, can bring back some value to the organization. Fernando 100%. Cruz, all the other names that have been thrown around, you're getting. That's where the lottery tickets come in.
Yeah,
that's where you're just like, they got this 17 or 18-year-old kid that could be something someday.
And a couple years ago, we traded 6 months of Tyler Naquin for two guys who are now in our top 30. So sometimes that does work out.
Yes. Right.
For sure.
It can play, but those aren't pieces that are going to help you in 2025.
Right.
But go
and because there are teams out there in the MLB that need bullpen, and they see that those two have performed at a high level at times, and so they'll go after those guys. And I think that's just kind of MLB teams filter through a lot of bullpen guys. That's just how it works in baseball. And you're probably not going to get a return as a Reds fan that you love, but I get that's just how baseball works. For me, the guy has always been and still is Jonathan India because of how he's played this year. I kind of think that he's kind of hit his way out. He's had a phenomenal season at the plate, and I think he's worth something. He will to a team like I think the Mariners. He can bring them offense to an offense that's been abysmal.
And the Mariners have been a pairing team, franchise with the Reds. Like, they've done a lot of deals in the past. So there is, I guess the Mariners do deals with everybody because they trade like 60 times a year. But with the Reds, there is some sort of semblance there.
I think you, if you're gonna sell, which I think they should, I think they have to trade Jonathan India because he's been around for a while. Obviously, fans love Jonathan India. He won Rookie of the Year here. How could you not love him? But at the end of the day, he doesn't fit your timeline. For the future with this core that you want to have with the Matt McClain, the Noel V. Marte, the Ellie De La Cruz, who are going to play in that infield. He doesn't fit your timeline. He's played phenomenal this season. Why keep him for the rest of this season? And then when his value, I feel like, won't be as high because then in the offseason or next season, it's, he played well last season. No, he's playing well this season. I say you ship him off now. You'll get a pretty solid return. And you can move forward with the core that you have.
I'm comfortable with the Reds getting rid of Alexis Diaz. That doesn't change what this team looks like. Yeah, you're going to struggle in the bullpen, but you also get an opportunity to see new arms. I don't like. I thought it was interesting that you brought up Andrew Abbott. I don't like that idea because I really like what Andrew Abbott brings to the team, and you've got him for 4 more years of control, 5 more years of control. So I'm not willing to. It'd have to be a heck of a pool. It'd have to be it'd have to be a lot. I'm not doing it just to do it. Jonathan India, I'm pretty much okay with whatever happens there. I'm pretty much okay with whatever they decide to do with Jonathan India. If he's a piece next year to where he rotates, when you make your starting 9, does he have a position? No, but he's in your lineup every day because he can hit. You play him in left, you play him in wherever you decide to play him. He's your DH. It doesn't matter. Jonathan India is kind of the guy that you can see playing 130 games next year without a true position, and that's okay. I think that's a kind of player that plays on playoff teams, plays on playoff rosters. He's the one that I think everyone is circling as, hey, this could be really interesting. But we're going to go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the piece that I think that for once, the old heads, the Reds Facebook, the grumpy fans, I think for once they might be right about this. And this is where I'm normally a pretty analytical person. I'm normally a pretty, hey, let's side with the guys who study this and have figured out ways to quantify the best possible approach to baseball. This is where I'm going to disagree with them, and that's about the Reds manager, David Bell. We'll be right back here on 1410 Wing AM. And we are back here on Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. We're going to talk about the Cincinnati Reds for a third segment. And this time I'm going to take something that I brought up on the show in the past. And it seems to be kind of a violent reaction when people discuss this on the internet. And that is what the Cincinnati Reds have in their manager, David Bell. I'm not going to get swept up in what happened one game yesterday and let that be the reason you make a franchise-changing decision. Instead, I'm going to take kind of the body of work of what he has been as a manager. And I know the argument has been managers don't matter. It's not too far from what we see in football circles about running backs. It's not too far from that. But managers don't matter. Look at the Chicago Cubs. They go out, they pay Craig Counsell $1 billion being the manager, and they're just not very good this year. But if you point that out, then you can point out that the Texas Rangers brought in Bruce Bochy, and in year 1, they were, a 100-loss team, and then in year 1 of Bruce Bochy, they win the World Series. So it goes both ways. But I keep this. I refuse to accept the notion that managers do not matter. I refuse to accept that notion in this sport. I've never been in a major league clubhouse. I don't know what happens on the day-to-day with the manager. But I have been around a lot of baseball games. I have been around a lot of baseball coaches. And there's one thing that I have known to come true at every level of baseball I've ever seen. And that is that a team adopts the personality of their leader. If the head coach is arrogant, cocky, walks around with swagger, teams, for better or worse, do the same thing. If a coach is a nose to the grindstone kind of guy, shows up, works hard, doesn't say a whole lot, and plays with some angst, the team follows suit. And what I've seen from the Cincinnati Reds now for about half a decade is a team that just plays a little sloppy. A team that doesn't play the game the way that winning franchises play. A team that makes mistakes like yesterday, where strike 3 to end the inning isn't blocked up. All you have to do is step on home plate, keep it in front of you. Bases were juiced. Just step on home plate, the inning's over. Then you walk in the run. It's a team that, and I give Ellie De La Cruz all the credit in the world. It's a team that does make a lot of errors. It's a team that strikes out a lot, that makes mistakes on the base paths. That's the kind of team that doesn't win at a sustainable level. And once again, I understand. Managers don't matter. So I have the question then. If managers don't matter, then why do you care if David Bell gets fired? If David Bell can't do anything because he doesn't have a team good enough to win, then why do you care what happens to him? I know he's a hometown guy. But what I see night in and night out from the Cincinnati Reds is a team that just quite isn't there. And if we come in this room, if you come and listen to any Cincinnati sports talk, and we're constantly bringing up these mistakes, if we're constantly bringing up the things that happen wrong with this team, why can't we point at the guy that's in charge of the team and say, you got to take responsibility? And in this case, responsibility is that you are no longer fit to have this job. I have seen baseball teams take the personality of their manager at every level, at every time that I've seen. And yet, what is this personality? What is this team's personality? What is David Bell's personality? Gets thrown out once a week. Is that what it is? I just don't know what they have. And in a chance to kind of reboot, turn around, see what you got next year, why not try it with a new voice? The only argument I hear on reasons to keep David Bell, it's never that he's doing a great job. It's never, hey, he's done this. Hey, they play like this because of him. It's always, why? It won't change anything. What argument's that? What argument is that? That it doesn't matter? Well, if it doesn't matter, then make a change. I don't know. You've got to do something different. You've got to do something different. I'm not going to do the cliche insanity definition right here, but you know what it is. I'm just tired of having the same conversations about David Bell over and over again. And I'm tired of seeing a team make the same mistakes that the Cincinnati Reds have. As a person, and you know how I am, I don't want them to succeed. I'm going to go to 2 of the next 3 ball games down at Great American Ballpark, and guess what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to root for the home team. I'm going to be wearing royal blue. But it is tiring hearing the same mistakes, watching the same mistakes. Jacob, I always think you have good perspective on the Cincinnati Reds. I know Elliot is very, very passionate when it comes to David Bell. And like I said, it's the only arguments that I ever hear for defending David Bell is it's not going to change anything. Then what? Am I crazy for thinking then why not do the change? If it doesn't change anything, let's try something else.
No, not crazy at all. And I've been fighting the fight with Elliot to be pro. I don't even think it is pro David Bell. None of the arguments for David Bell is that he's actually a good manager. It's just that there's other issues that are bigger than David Bell, and some of the blame that's going to him isn't necessarily his fault. But I'm done fighting the fight. This weekend did me in. I mean, if you're going to lose the way you lost on Sunday, I mean, there's no reason for me to, say you're a good manager and act like I still want you to be a manager of the team. I'm part of the camp that I know you don't like, that I don't think managers really move the needle that much. I think they kind of just, follow the iPad like
that's
Elliot
not a
says.
camp. That's the opposite, because that's not an opinion. It's just like, well, it is an opinion, but like just saying like, it doesn't matter. Okay, then why not give in to us then?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm done now. Fire him.
Right.
Move on from him. Just get it done. Just change something, because you can't change 26 guys. You have to change something else. And I think that at this point it's just David Bell. I mean, the team's making errors and base running mistakes that it seems like coachable issues that they were making in April as well. So at some point, it is fall on one man's shoulders, and at this point it's David Bell. I don't know. Otherwise you're going to have to start blaming some players for not listening to the coaching or not, focusing on themselves or whatever it might be, because this stuff's really inexcusable at the end of the day. And then the one guy that it comes down to is it's going to be David Bell. So, at this point, I've been out there fighting for David Bell. I'm done. Just fire him. Get him out of here.
It is funny, though. I have seen Kirby do this to where when this argument comes up, he just goes, I don't care. Yeah, fire him. Like, because if your opinion is that it doesn't matter, he doesn't move the needle, which is, you know what? That's what the smartest people in baseball say. That's what the smart guys say. Now, I've already mentioned that I refuse to accept that notion. But it is just funny how they're just like, whatever, who cares? Just get somebody else. And I just think that there needs to be a change. The fact that David Bell has been here for now 6 years, and he's had 3 different rosters that have all been competitive enough to be on the borderline of the postseason, and he's not been able to get in there, yeah, we'll take the COVID year, but whatever. When a team's 83 and 79 with the players that they had in 2021, with what they had in 2019, with what they have now and last year, it's been 3 different iterations, and it's been the same story. This team's just not getting over that hump. And I think that David Bell being gone could be a bump. Do I want him to be gone midseason? I don't care. I just think that the Cincinnati Reds can't continue to trot out David Bell on opening day next year. I just think that. Because the same mistakes that you are seeing are Will Benson not being able to hit a 92-mile-an-hour fastball middle. That's not something David Bell can control other than taking him out of the lineup. When Lucas Sims walks in the game-winning run, that's not something David Bell can control. But the things that David Bell can control are the base running. Hey, let's not make mistakes. Hey, Ellie, let's not steal second down 4 in the 9th inning. Hey, let's not try to stretch a double into the triple for the first out of the inning. Let's not do these things. That's stuff that you can relay to your coaching staff, to the team, and say, this is how we're going to play baseball from here on out. We're done making these mistakes. I'm tired of seeing them. Yeah. Casey, Jimmy, got an opinion on David Bell as the manager?
I think, honestly, Luke said it perfectly during Dialed In this morning. He said that they are aggressive, but they're scared. And honestly, I think that those are 2 conflicting coaching philosophies in itself, and it shows up a lot on the field. It shows up in the base running. They make a lot of mistakes and errors, and it just all that culminates into what your philosophy as a team. As the manager of this team, I think he's done a really poor job at either executing on one side of the spectrum or the other. You got to kind of either be the aggressive ball team that succeeds a lot in that area, or you got to be the smart, safe team. And they fall somewhere in between that, and it costs them. So that being said, I'm kind of on the side of fire David Bell, because you just need to do something at this point. I don't know how much he matters, but I do know that he matters enough to have the authority to say that we're going to be aggressive. that we're not going to be aggressive, and those mistakes end up costing them games. So,
yep, and that's just it's been a constant role. It's been a constant thing of mistakes, and I think it was who was it? Was it Cincy B? Said winning teams actually learn from mistakes and they fix them. And I just keep seeing the same problems happen time and time again with the Cincinnati Reds team. And like I said, I'm not going to do the cliche, the definition of insanity thing. But to keep rolling out David Bell, to keep rolling out this team, making the same mistakes and expect something to change does seem silly. All right. Jimbo, anything to add before we go to break?
Yeah, I think I've been on the opposite side of this fire David Bell all season. I think he's been kind of dealt an unfair hand with injuries and
no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that.
But after watching the game yesterday, I think I kind of just came to the conclusion that I knew people were going to come out and blame that loss on David Bell, because at the end of the day, it was a terrible loss and very, very hard to watch. And so now I'm kind of just at the point where if you're going to fire him, do it. Like if you have any doubts with him as your manager, fire him. If Freddie Benavides comes in, or whoever you end up hiring, then it better get better, because I mean, if it doesn't get better, then you're in a really tough spot. So if you have any doubts with him now, fire him. I think. Listen,
if at the end of the day, if your only argument for keeping him is that you don't think that managers move the needle, then that's not a good argument. If the only reason you're still in a relationship is because you don't know if you can do better, even though you're unhappy, that's probably not a good reason to stay there.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals defensive line, Sam Hubbard news, and how I think that unit could be what could be the decisive factor on the Cincinnati Bengals season. I'll leave it right there. We'll be right back on 1410 Wing AM.
Hey, how's it going? We're a little late on the ads, but that's okay, because we can do them whenever we want. Doesn't have to be 11 o'clock, because this is a radio show on the internet.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
So, that being said, let's get right into it. Pawnee water, made right here in Hamilton, Ohio, uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing other brands use. The result is a healthy alkaline water, and some say the best tasting water in the world. Visit Pawnee Water at PAHHNIwater.com to see where you can buy this great tasting water. Encore Technologies, they provide IT solutions for a data center world with a suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work from home computing modules to improve efficiency and, Jimmy?
Productivity.
That's right. The path to innovation begins here. Visit encore.tech. And let me tell you about our ticketing sponsor, the Game Time app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code OTB, that's off the bench for you that didn't realize that, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And let me just read you some of these deals we got today. Tickets for the Reds versus Cubs, $8 right now. That's a pretty good deal. They got Steelers, Bengals tickets on December. They've got some deals going on for that. It's $100 right now. That's actually not bad for a Steelers game. Luke Combs comes to Paycor. That's August the 2nd. That's this Friday, I believe. That's roughly going to cost about $78. Maybe you can pair a couple of tickets together and get that code OTB again for $20 off your first purchase on those tickets. So lots of different things coming up here. Leagues Cup for FC. I believe that's on the 1st and the 5th, right, Jimmy? Or am I a little off on that? I don't quite remember what.
It's in the first week of August.
Yeah.
It is the...
I think it's the 1st. At least it says it's the 1st here on...
They play the 1st against... Don't know how to pronounce that. And then they play the 5th against NYCFC.
Yeah. And if you're wanting to go catch an NFL game, you want to go all the way up to the NFL Hall of Fame game versus the Bears versus the Texans. Yep, that's right. This Thursday, it's only about $40. So go catch the NFL opening week. Is that what we're calling it now? The NFL get together, get back together.
It's the what was it called? What did I call it? I forgot. But
it's like the NFL get back together or something.
They were pushing it. It was a coined term by the NFL.
Nice.
Yeah. Other housekeeping things. Please do like the show, share the stream with a friend. We really appreciate it. You guys watching helps us grow, helps us reach out to more and more of you so that we can have a bigger, stronger community. You have something, Reed?
Tomorrow night, Chicago Cubs versus Cincinnati Reds, 3-2-1 night. I think we get together. I don't know. You talk about the NFL, get back together. Let's do the CBox, get back together. We go to the game. So if you're in our Discord, we'll talk about where we're going to get tickets, and we can go get a beer. We can go hang out, maybe go to the banks beforehand and have fun. And hopefully the blue team wins. But, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We do have a couple of super chats. We do. Is Sir Boy in here?
He is.
He just came in.
No
He
way.
said Reed's hosting. He's happy.
Thank God. You know what's crazy, before we get to the super chats, is about, I don't know, 10 months ago, 12 months ago, probably a year, I was by far the most hated person at Chatterbox amongst the fans. Like, I was by far the most hated person. I feel like I've kind of gotten a little more favorable. I think it's because I stopped the Red slander.
Probably helped.
That's probably it. But I have a lot of fun during the Bengals season and stuff like that. But Everett Henry with a $5 super chat. They got 6 likes. I think it was Everett Henry's first ever super chat. He said, wishing everyone a clown-free Monday. The Everett Kenner hate is reminiscent of the Mouse Cop Reed hate from a year ago. It's very reminiscent of that. It's Kenner does a great job, guys. He really does a great job. He just has different opinions on our Cincinnati Bengals, so we'll leave it there. And then Mark Fetters with his nut cutter super chat. When I got this membership 10 months ago, the Reds still had hope.
They still have hope. It's okay, Mark.
It's not dead.
It's going to be okay, Mark.
5 out. 5 out.
What do you mean it's not dead?
5 out.
Mark's still going to...
5 out? Like 5 out of what?
Mark...
The last wild card, the playoffs. 5 out.
What does that get?
5 out. Everyone say it would be 5 out.
Mark's still going to watch every game, probably bet on every single game, but...
I'm going to start saying 13 out. We're 13 out from last place in the National League.
Okay.
I'm just going to start looking at it that way.
What a dumb opinion. What a dumb thing to say. 5 out. 5 out. All right, we're gonna step away. Anything else? We're gonna do a box lunch. It is Monday. We're gonna do a box lunch after the show for the members. We're gonna sit around here and bull junk. I'm going to the Reds game tonight. Anyone going to the Reds game tonight?
I'm not.
You're going to the Luke Combs concert this weekend.
I am.
Both nights?
I am going both nights.
Both nights?
I'm going the second night.
That's pretty nice. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, I'm very excited. You're going?
I'm Saturday night.
Nice. Very nice. Yep.
Saturday, the Revivalists play here in Hamilton. The lead singer from the Revivalists is from Hamilton, David Shaw. So he does a concert every year. And opening for the Revivalists is Nolan Taylor, who is from the same town as Casey, Blanchester, Ohio. If you guys don't know Nolan Taylor, he rocks. He's great. I saw him. He opened for Sam Barber at Brick Street in February, and he's kind of gaining more popularity. But he's going to open for the Revivalist. He had a song on that Twisters album. He had a song in that Twisters album for that movie. But, all right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. Hello and welcome back to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Reed Mouse in here, hosting instead of Justin Kenner. Kenner will be back tomorrow for your radio listeners, so you guys won't have to listen to me ramble on too much longer. And I do ramble a lot. I do talk a lot, and I don't know if I always get to the point I'm trying to make, but I just say words and just see what comes out. And we've talked 3 segments about the Reds and 1 segment about the Cincinnati Bengals. We're gonna go back. Go back to the gridiron because I think people got a little worried. They got a little worried when they saw that Sam Hubbard left practice, left with the trainer, especially with Trey Hendrickson not practicing at full go because he's a little banged up. But news had come out. MRI was good. Everything. It looks like it is nothing to be overly concerned about with Sam Hubbard. Although I will say this when it comes to him, he has been a little banged up now for a couple years. And when Sam Hubbard's not at full Sam Hubbard, he's, I don't want to say this about a hometown kid, but he's kind of a lackluster edge rusher. And that's what I want to talk about is everyone knows that the Cincinnati Bengals' success this year is dependent on practically one guy. It's a team game, but this team is true contenders. They were last year with a healthy Joe Burrow. They were the 2 years prior with a healthy Joe Burrow. And they know that when Joe Burrow is healthy, one of the best quarterbacks in the league with the weapons that he has, he's going to have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins for another year, and I think he's got a lot more weapons on top of that. Everyone likes what they're seeing with Mike Gesicki. But they know that when Joe Burrow's healthy, this team can beat any team in the National Football League. That we know is true. But I think that there is something else that we talked about last year and that I have concerns for this year, and that is one of the most critical pieces of the team is the defensive line and how well they play. Trey Hendrickson had a career year last year, but still the talk was this team doesn't get to the quarterback enough. This team doesn't have enough pass rush, but no one wants to talk about how it gets better. Everyone knows that this team has a problem with getting to the quarterback when it's not Trey Hendrickson. But no one wants to talk about what that is, and it's pretty clear. Sam Hubbard just doesn't get to the quarterback enough. And everyone wants to kind of make fun of the Bengals for Myles Murphy last year. But make fun of them all you want. If the Bengals want to take a next step defensively, a team that was in the bottom third and the bottom fourth defensively last year, it's going to rely on their ability to get to the quarterback. We play in a division with Lamar Jackson. We play in a conference with Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen. You got to get to the quarterback. And like I said, everyone knows that. Everyone knows Trey Hendrickson does his job. And everyone says that the Bengals don't get to the quarterback enough. But no one wants to talk how you get there. And unfortunately, how you get there is Sam Hubbard taking less snaps. I don't think it's a want. I don't think it's a problem. I think it's a need that Myles Murphy takes the majority of snaps on the opposite of Trey Hendrickson. Certainly on passing downs. To where Sam Hubbard can't be back there on third. He just can't. And Myles Murphy has to take a step. I liked what I saw from Myles Murphy towards the end of last year. When we kind of knew that this team was in the playoff picture, first team out, but not true contenders, we said, hey, let's see what we have. And what we had was Myles Murphy, who at certain moments looked dominant. Now he's got to continue to develop. When I look at this Cincinnati Bengals team, outside of Joe Burrow's health, and then maybe outside of what the play at right tackle is, the biggest question to me is, can we get back there? Simple as that. Sheldon Rankins comes in, and I praised this signing because I looked at what the commonality of what Super Bowl winning teams have had over the past few years. And besides elite quarterback, the last 5 Super Bowl winners, 3 are Patrick Mahomes, 1's Matthew Stafford, 1's Tom Brady. Outside of those guys, the one commonality that they had was a disruptor on the middle of the line. And I think that's what the Bengals might have with Sheldon Rankins. If he can play to what he played last year. We're talking Aaron Donald, one of the best to ever do it. We're talking Chris Jones, probably now the best interior defensive lineman at pass rushing. And Vita Vea was very, very good for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Pro Bowl level. Can they get that with Sheldon Rankins? And then can Myles Murphy become a disruptor on the edge? Sam Hubbard, we are afraid to criticize because he is a Moeller kid, because he played at Ohio State and a lot of affinity for fans in this area for Ohio State. And he's coming here. He's had one of the most electrifying plays that we have seen the Cincinnati Bengals had, not just in our lifetime, but in the history of the franchise and the dash. The 99-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown. I was in the stadium. I was in the mezzanine. My wife had to get me down off my seat because she thought I was going to jump over the ledge. I was so excited. But if this team wants to get back to what we talked about in the first segment, which is to fend off going into obscurity, to continue to be in a contender, it's going to take more from Myles Murphy, Trey Hendrickson. It's going to take more from Sam Hubbard. Sam Hubbard, it's not just going to be Myles Murphy alone back there. Sam Hubbard has to get back to the quarterback when he is in there. And I know that's never been his game. His game's run stop. His game is doing several other things. Sam Hubbard is solid at almost everything he does. But I think we need great back there. Casey, Jacob, I started this segment by saying that everyone knows that the Bengals need more pass rush, but no one wants to talk about how that happens. Is it fair to say that Myles Murphy is going to take more snaps, needs to take more snaps?
Yeah, certainly. I certainly think so. And it's not good that Sam Hubbard got hurt. Those words are not coming out of my mouth. If there's a time period where it benefits the Bengals for Sam Hubbard to miss a little bit of camp, it's right now. Sam Hubbard not being in there for the first little bit of camp and Myles Murphy getting to run with the first-team defense off the edge, that's great. That's going to be a massive boost for his development going into his second year, and we really want him to take a big step. We need production opposite of Trey Hendrickson. That's why you let DJ Reader go. That's why you brought in Sheldon Rankins. It's because you wanted to increase that pass rush in the middle. DJ Reader obviously unstoppable against the run, one of the best anchors to a D-line against the run in the league, but he didn't really provide that much against the pass as a pass rusher. So Sheldon Rankins is going to be a massive step there for that. And then you're going to see, hopefully, guys like Joseph Asai as well step up to what they were supposed to be. I mean, obviously, we got Joseph Asai in the third round, whatever that was, in 2020, I believe. And then he was projected to be a first-round draft pick before that season. So his ceiling is much, much higher than the output we've gotten from him as well. So there's a lot of pieces on this Bengals team that excite me more coming off the edge than Sam Hubbard does. So I'll be interested to see what his role really is on this team, especially on passing downs. I don't think you're going to bench the guy because he's kind of molded himself so deeply into the fabric of the city, the fabric of that locker room, that you're not going to take him off the field. But I think we could see Sam Hubbard be kicked inside maybe for some passing downs.
Yeah.
He's a big guy. Have him put on a couple more LBs and then line up, an Osai or a Murphy opposite of Trey Hendrickson and just really get four guys up there that can really get after the quarterback. So, I'm really interested to see how that D-line plays. And then, you touched on Chris Jenkins being the second-round pick to fill in there in the D-line. But McKinley Jackson's the name that I've really been circling because he's the only guy on this roster that has reps as a true nose guard. And that's where DJ Reader always played. So unless Lou Anarumo is going to change his defense around, I think we're going to see more McKinley Jackson than we think.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I've been back and forth with Sam Hubbard because I went back and looked at his season last year. And I remembered that he got hurt, dinged up.
He was banged up for a couple games.
For a couple games. And then we come to find out at the offseason he had surgery on that same issue. I can't quite remember if it was a shoulder or if it was something to do with his legs. I can't quite remember. But before that injury, he had 4 sacks in 7 games. He was getting to not just the quarterback, but he was stopping the run quite a bit. He was on a career season before he got hurt. It's not really what Sam Hubbard doesn't provide. It's what the rest of the depth did not provide. Osai only had 1 sack on the season. Myles Murphy, yes, he was a rookie. He just wasn't ready yet to be rushing the quarterback. Right. Obviously, we saw him towards the end of the season perform a lot more. He was getting more snaps and was able to put pressure on quarterbacks. But I think it was more about the depth because even the defensive tackles, it was just B.J. Hill and DJ Reader, and those combined had, I think, 4 sacks, if I'm not mistaken. They had 5.5 sacks together. I mean, that's just inexcusable from the defensive tackle room as a whole. Altogether, though, I think they've made a lot of improvements. They went out and got Chris Jenkins and McKinley. I think those two give you more youth in the defensive tackle room. I think Sheldon Rankins provides that leadership and that explosiveness that we're looking for. And I think we've missed out a lot of interior pass rush, and I think that's king in the NFL at this current moment. I think we've definitely seen that when you have an interior pass rusher, you win games. You win a lot of games.
It's a disruptor. It's the greatest luxury in the sport.
And for me, currently, having Sam Hubbard get hurt at this point if he's okay, he's okay. But him already getting dinged up at this point in the season is not great. I think he provides a lot in terms of the first couple downs. He's going to
no doubt.
He's going to be the guy that provides stability on that side. Like, you already know that he's going to do his assignment and it's going to do a good enough job to get the job done. Him going down this early, I hate that for him. But like I said already, I think it's more about the depth that we've lacked this entire run since the Super Bowl run. And I think we finally will see a lot more of that. I think Myles Murphy, he'll get lots of snaps because, one, he's our first-round draft pick, but two, I think he's finally understanding NFL defense. He's finally understanding, and he's finally full speed, right? He wasn't full speed early. Now he is. And the depth there is a lot better than it was prior.
So here's what I'll say. And I think that if Sam Hubbard is your starting second edge rusher, that's not very good. But if he's your third guy, that is pretty good. So this isn't so much a predication on what Sam Hubbard needs to do. It's more of, can Myles Murphy take that step? Can Myles Murphy prove that he is a first-round talent? The story was that he was a top 10 pick, fell down to the Bengals. Bengals couldn't pass it up. Even after giving both their edge rushers extensions, they go and get Myles Murphy. And this has been kind of their MO now. Third consecutive draft where you get a guy in the first round that isn't expected to play right away. They did it with Dax Hill. They did it with Myles Murphy. And now they're doing it with Amarius Mims. This has kind of been their MO. Can you anticipate that Myles Murphy takes that step and turns out to be the first-round pick that we anticipated him to be? And I don't want to put numbers on it. I don't want to say, hey, he's got to get 10 sacks or anything like that. I don't want to do that. I just need to see this defensive line get to the quarterback. It's been the way the game is played. What's the most important pieces from top to bottom? Your quarterback, your offensive line. Third is your defensive line. After that, you mix in the weapons and the cornerbacks. But I need to see in a division, in a conference that is so heavily contested, in a conference that has 8 of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, I need to get back there. Because I know that's what it's going to take to do what we want Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals to do. To do what the Cincinnati Bengals were on the doorstep of doing 3 years ago. Of getting back to it 2 years ago. That's what we need. Simple as that. All right. Step aside. We're going to go to our final segment of the show. Dealer's Choice. I got nothing. I planned out 5 segments. And we're here at segment 6.
It's funny how that works.
Who knows what's next? Who knows what's next? Because I don't see it in a bit on 1410 Wing AM. And welcome back to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Casey mutes our mics when we go to break, and then he gave, all right, here we go. And I reciprocated it because I'm not kidding. I didn't plan this far ahead. It's like this is where I'm gonna show that I'm a Gen Z or whatever it is. You remember the one SpongeBob episode where Plankton, the whole thing was that he was always trying to get the Krusty Krab formula. And he finally got it. And they go, all right, what next? He's like, I never thought I'd get this far. And that was my plan here today. Is I didn't think I'd get this far. Obviously, over the weekend, we talked about all the big news in the NFL. Talked about the trade deadline approaching. There will be trades, and we're keeping a close eye. I guess I was kind of hoping that the Reds made a trade by now. I think we will see one before first pitch tonight. I don't know. We'll see what comes of that. But the Olympics started over the weekend, and it was, the 2020, 2021 Olympics, because of COVID, and it kind of it really didn't hit home like it normally did. But, the big opening ceremony that I'm sure caused some debates in some family households over the weekend. But my wife, we get on the couch yesterday, and we're going to go watch something, and she just pulled out her phone, and she watched gymnastics.
Nice.
For 2 hours, just on her phone, locked in. Have you guys taken in any of the Olympics so far?
Yeah. I watched the basketball game on Sunday morning. Great basketball game. It was close at first. I was getting a little nervous, and then U.S. pulled away. Looks like they're starting to click a little bit now that we're playing the real games. And then I switched over to the Gold Zone for a while on Peacock. They have Scott Hansen, the voice of NFL Red Zone, running Gold Zone on Peacock. It's electric. I watched that for probably 3 hours while I played NCAA on Sunday.
That's awesome. Yeah,
What's your favorite Olympic sport that you like to watch? Like, if it's soccer, because I get, like, if USA's in the girls get deep in, which, by the way, Mallory Swanson's having an incredible run here in the Olympics. I wish her husband would do better. But basketball, soccer, gymnastics, I think those take up a big thing. I like the weird, like, I like watching track and field. That's not weird, but like team handball's electric. If you don't watch team handball's great. It's also one of my favorite spectator sports. I gained an appreciation for it covering high school sports as long as I did, is a volleyball. You watch grade A volleyball, like the men play, they are flying around. If you've never sat down and watched Olympic volleyball, sit down. It's absolutely amazing. But team handball is a lot of fun.
I was going to say, my wife has been all over the men's volleyball team.
Uh-oh.
Watch out.
Well, let me try to rephrase that. She's been telling me how good the team is, and that they might actually have a chance to take gold this year. That, and I've been watching a lot of the soccer. The men's team got crushed against France.
What's new?
Shocker.
Yeah, that was not good. Women's, though, they're taking care of business. They're exciting. They're getting some new young talent in there, and that's been really, really cool to see.
Women's soccer is so much more fun to watch than men's
100%.
soccer.
100%. I've had that take for a long time, but I
think it's just because we're better at it.
That out.
But
the other thing that I thought was really funny about the Olympics so far is like we do like really well in fencing, and then when it comes to shooting, we didn't place anything.
Is that a political joke?
Yeah, I think it was.
Is that a political joke right there?
You'd think,
America,
England would do better than
They love their guns, and we couldn't place.
We do really well with fences, and not well with guns. That's not what I've heard in the news in the past few years. But we're not doing politics because no one knows my political affiliations. Jimbo, you been watching any Olympics?
I have not. I mean, I've taken in some of the media surrounding the basketball team, but haven't watched the Olympics much at all. Actually, I haven't watched anything. I'm looking forward. Well, I guess I just like the Winter Olympics more.
Really?
Yeah. Huh. I love the Winter Olympics, and I love like the hockey. That's my favorite one in the Winter Olympics.
Yeah. When you get to the big team sports, basketball, soccer, those are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I just like how there's always something.
Yeah.
It's nice when like you turn it on and you're not you're just turning it on. It's not like you're sitting down like I want to watch the rowing team or something like that. But you just turn it on, see what they're playing, and then you see Team USA competing. You're like, all right, let's rock and roll, baby. I will say that I was a huge, because I think at the perfect age for Michael Phelps when I was 12 years old back in 2008. So like Michael Phelps was the story of that summer. Swimming's not the same. The relays are fun, like the relay, the medleys, and all that stuff, but it's not the same.
Speaking of swimming, men's 400 individual medley, bronze medal winner Carson Foster, old St. Xavier Bomber, transferred to Sycamore.
There you go.
Graduated from Sycamore. He's my age in my class, so it just makes me think, I fell short, man. That's tough if he's over there in Paris getting a bronze medal. And, well, I guess I'm here. That's positive.
It's funny you mentioned that because I don't know if I've brought this up on the show. I certainly have said it to you guys off the show, but I did the normal sports. I actually get a little jealous when I talk to my wife about the way she did swimming, gymnastics, all the, I think she played ultimate frisbee one time. Like, her parents got her in as many things as possible. In my family, and like, I played basketball, I played football, I played baseball, and then I played soccer when I was a kid. But like, I wasn't playing hockey. I wasn't doing all these different sports to find my footing. The one thing I did do, and I did this in 7th and 8th grade, was I joined my school's archery team. We had a St. Peter and Chains here in Hamilton had an archery team, and I competed for in the Arnold Games up in Columbus, and actually qualified for nationals, which was down in Orlando, Florida. Unfortunately, my dad didn't let me go because I was failing every class in 8th grade, so it is what it is. But I remember when I was on the archery team, Hamilton had a gold medal winner. I forget his name, but he was a gold medalist in archery. And I remember thinking as a kid, like, hey, obviously I'm not going to make it on the men's national basketball team. But like, if I try really hard at this archery stuff, maybe I can be an Olympic gold medalist for archery. Obviously, I quit. I don't think I've picked up a bow since 8th grade. But yeah, I remember thinking like, oh man, if I try one of these weird sports, one of these off sports, weird sports isn't the right word, but if I try one of these off sports, maybe I too can be an Olympic gold medal winner. But it's crazy. Some of the sports, and like gymnastics gets a big rap for this, is depending on when you're born, you might not have a chance to compete in the Olympics. Like, if you are born to where you'll be 19 when the Olympics come around in gymnastics, like, you might only get one shot at it, and you center your whole life around that. Because if you're an Olympic gymnast, you stop going to school, you're homeschooled, you train every day, and that's just your life for there on out. And it's just crazy to think that you might only get one shot at the Olympics, and then it just might go away, and that's just all you know.
That's just kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. Have you guys seen the Twitter sensation Iona Mauer, the rugby U.S. men's or U.S. women's?
Awesome.
Oh, dude, she might be like the next coming of Marshawn Lynch. I mean, she's literally, there are so many clips of her just completely crushing people. I love it. Like, it makes me want to go and learn more about rugby because, admittedly, I don't know much about rugby. That's one thing I do have a complaint about the Olympics. We're at a time period where we should have a little QR code at the top left corner where we can just learn the rules of the sport.
That's actually great. That's actually great.
I think they
scoring
have
and
on the
whatnot.
Olympic website.
Do they?
Yeah.
On the website.
Well, yeah, just like when they're showing a sport, that's not a bad, that's actually a great suggestion. Like, all right, this is what you're watching, this is how it's played, or like, these are the rules and the weird stuff like that. You mentioned rugby. If you've never sat down and watched rugby, it is awesome. And my cousin, her fiance plays rugby, and he was explaining to me this is how it's done. I don't know how he got into it, but every city has a rugby team. Cincinnati has a rugby team, Columbus has a rugby team, and they play in this league here in like the Great Lakes region, to where once a week you go to the other city and you compete on a Sunday. And what's crazy is they play this rugby match. And at the end of the rugby match, because I guess this is kind of the culture of rugby, so like say like he'll go from Columbus, he'll come down here to Cincinnati, play the Cincinnati team. The Cincinnati team is supposed to host a party for you after the match. So, like, you play at noon, you play for however long the match is, 2 hours, 3 hours, however long it is. And then at the end of the match, you host a big cookout. And, like, they do these crazy things, like each team picks a player of the game. And those player of the games, they drink a beer out of their shoe. And they, like, do, like, a race to see who can drink the beer quickest out of their just sweaty shoe.
I love me a shoey.
It's just crazy to think, like, I'm going to war with you for 2 hours. I mean, we're going to break bones. We're going to get bloody. We're going to get banged up. And then, hey, let's have a cookout. Let's just have a little meal. Let's just drink some beer and have a little meal. And that's why humans rock sometimes, that we do that. Like, we just straight up just murder each other for 2 hours. And we're like, hey, want a beer? Want a pint? Want to share a pint over here? It's cool. It's really cool. I got to go to one of his matches. I haven't been yet. When my brother was in college, his first school that he went to was the Radford University in Virginia. It's a D1 school. And we used to drive over there and watch him play. I was like 9, 8. I think that was about 8 or 9. He's 10 years older than me. And my brother would play, and I wouldn't watch I'd watch his ABs because I knew his walk-up song. It was Jay-Z's "Ring 'Em Out." Bring 'em out, bring 'em out, bring 'em back. That was a good one. But I would just in the outfield they played rugby, and I would just sit there and watch rugby. And then I'd hear my brother's walk-up song. I'd go and watch it, and then I'd go back to the rugby match. But I just remember that the Radford Highlanders. Also, I was in college. They made the NCAA tournament. They played not the baseball team, but the basketball team. Made the NCAA tournament against the UNC Tar Heels. They lost 106-55. Tyler Hansborough put it on them. That's back when the 16-1 rivalry, the 16-1 matchups were just absolute bloodbaths. It's not like that anymore. Any other Olympics you guys are taking in?
No, that's it. I really just watched the Gold Zone in basketball. I got to get into the other sports. I have a tough time if I don't know the athletes. That's why I like basketball so much, just because obviously I know all these guys from the NBA. But
basketball was pretty crazy, though.
Basketball
KD
was
completely
crazy.
took over that game.
I mean, Kevin Durant. Holy cow.
The Slim Reaper.
I mean, what a game. They need to embrace that nickname more.
Yeah.
They kind of split the line between Easy Money Sniper and Slim Reaper. Slim Reaper is one of the best nicknames in the history
so
of
good.
sports. 100%. I mean, it's so cool. So I was glad they started to do that a little bit. And then, I'm not going to talk about the USA basketball team without talking about my guy, my Lord and Savior, the King, LeBron James. He 27 minutes at 39 years old, a casual 9 of 13 from the field, 21 points, 7 rebounds, 9 assists. I mean, what a game. Just takes over whenever he needs to. They were down 12-2. He scored 6 points in a row in the first quarter. So, I mean, just an unbelievable game. This team is going to be really, really fun to watch. Steph Curry turned it on a little bit late. He ended the game with 3 made threes. So, I'm really excited for this team outside of Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid needs to get either back to the United States or on the way to the bench because there's no way he can start.
I did
anymore.
see.
Can I tell your quote, the text you sent yesterday in our group chat?
Yeah, you can.
This is an exact quote from Jacob Tissett watching Team USA play. Quote, Joel Embiid might be a terrorist. And that was because of the way he was playing. He's anti-Team USA according to Jacob.
He's playing bad. I mean, I've always hated Joel Embiid. I hated him when he was in the NBA, and all my friends from Philly said, once he's on your team, you're going to love him. And I said, okay, great. That's certainly a thing that happens in sports. But sure, I believe you. I hate him so much more now that I have to root for him. Yeah. I mean, he's playing FIBA basketball where they don't let you foul bait, and he's still just trying to foul bait everybody. I mean, it's ridiculous. Anthony Davis is so much better. I hope Steve Kerr makes that change. But other than that, yeah, I think Katie's going to get more comfortable with some more minutes and emerge to the starting lineup, and then this team's just going to roll. Serbia was the 4th favorite for the gold medal, and probably their
Team
toughest.
USA is the favorite. Who's the 2nd favorite?
Canada.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Jason Tatum getting 0 minutes?
That made me really happy. And I saw side-to-side highlights of Jason Tatum and Tyrese Halliburton, who both didn't get any minutes.
Yeah.
Tyrese Halliburton, many, many more high fives, a lot more clapping. He filled, I think, 3 more waters than Tatum did. So
Good
Jason Tatum, bad teammate. I think it's time to start the dialogue.
Yeah. Selfish player.
Yeah.
That's what everyone says about Jason Tatum, is that he is a selfish player. Are there any other – so obviously there's the big ones, soccer, basketball. Are there any other sports that I should be closely watching, whether that be the golf, tennis, any other things that I should be closely watching?
I think golf's fun. I mean, you have Xander and Scotty there, and I think Wyndham Clark is on the United States team as well. It's at least big names. I mean, like I said before, I like the names that I recognize pre-Olympics. I like to see some of the new people and become fans of new people. But if I can turn the TV on and watch Scotty Scheffler play golf for the United States, I like watching that a little bit more than anything else.
I think baseball comes back next Olympics, which has been gone away. Maybe it's already back. I got to look into that. I don't know that. But it'd be interesting to see how we field a Team USA roster, whether it just be college kids, minor leaguers, or like washed up pros. Like just getting like a guy, no one's coming up. Like a Joey Votto playing for Team Canada. Like he's like, yeah, I got nothing else to do right now, so I'll just go play ball in the Olympics. That'd be cool.
Tennis has been cool as well. I mean, obviously all the big names play for their countries in tennis, but it was Mousecop just put it in the chat, but it was Nadal versus Djokovic this morning in just the second round. So pretty crazy to see those big names play early in the tournament. Obviously, you have to wait usually till the end for that.
Chase Wellman tells me I need to tune in to beach volleyball. He says it's worth my time.
Oh.
Bonk, Chase. Bonk. Is that what we're going to do here? who were the greats? Christy May and beach volleyball. Someone help me out. Christy May was one of them. Who was the other one? I know we had a duo that were fantastic for like three Olympics. Simone Biles, where does she rank in all-time Olympians?
Top 2.
Gotta be top 5, like 5, right? I don't know.
Like Phelps is one.
Yeah,
Phelps is one. Is Biles 2?
Probably 2, right?
Who was the other swimmer? Mark Smits, something like that.
I'm a Lochte guy, personally.
Dressel.
Ledecky, Katie Ledecky's up there.
She got
sure.
third,
That's right.
apparently.
She's been dominated forever.
saw.
Really? She got
I
third?
think she got third.
Walsh and May. That's right.
You should watch rowing.
Rowing's cool, but we don't have a good rowing team, right?
Alex said he's woke on Simone Biles.
Our
What does that even mean?
our men's 8 is good, which, if you know how rowing
No, I
works.
don't. I stopped watching rowing after in solidarity with the Winklevoss twins. Ever since Facebook got stolen from them, I'm like, I'll support you guys, but after that, I'm done supporting the rowing team.
No,
I once tweeted the Winklevoss twins.
I saw something about them recently.
I was working out at Planet Fitness and I was doing the rowing thing and I took a
yeah?
picture and I said, I'm coming for you guys. And they liked it and said,
They
love
did?
it. They just said, love it. That's all they said. I just said, I'm coming for you guys. I wanted to, I should have challenged them. A rowing match down the Great Miami. The winner gets all the Bitcoin that they own.
What do you do on the
Or
rowing
Ethereum.
machine?
They own Ethereum.
Ethereum.
What do you do on the rowing machine when you use it? Do you just
row.
go?
Yeah, I get a number in my head. I'm gonna keep going until I get to that. But I don't know if I have good form. But I try to use every muscle. Like I'm kicking and I'm pulling.
Okay.
Like I'm not just like doing my back. Like I'm actually like rowing it too.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I
You used to row.
I rowed in high school, so
Ooh.
I got a fair amount of workouts on the rowing machine. You should try. You should set it to 2,000 meters and do it as fast as you can, and then send me your score.
I don't think I will.
You should. You should try it.
I don't know.
It's not. It's hard, but no.
Did you invent a massive social media company and get it stolen from you?
Yes. After.
Crazy.
Nice. All right. That does it from us here on the radio portion. Justin Kinner will be back tomorrow. I had so much fun talking to you guys here on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, 1410 Wing AM. All right, we're back. That was fun. That was fun. Probably, if I can give myself a critique, it's that you should plan for 6 segments on a 6-segment show. Like I knew coming in that I had to do 6 segments. I planned 5 because that's how I do it in life. You look at my house, all the home renovation projects that I have, like my bathroom right now, it's 98% done. It's that 2% that I'm just, it'll get done eventually, some point in my life. That's just how we're rocking and rolling. C'est la vie.
I just unpacked my last box from moving home from college over the weekend.
Nice.
So that gets us up to 100%. I was reckoning about 95 for the last 3 months.
It's so funny, like when you do things, you're like, you like work really hard, and you're like, I gotta get this done. Then you like look at the progress that you made, and like, we did good today.
Yeah.
All right, that's probably good enough. And then you just never do it again.
Oh yeah, no.
There's also downstairs in all my windows, as I've well documented how many windows I have. I painted, if there's 20 windows on my bottom floor, I've painted 18 of them, 18 and a half.
That's good.
And I did it like one day, and it was like 9 p.m. and I was like, I'll get back to it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. They're still, 2 years later, they're still just unpainted. Like I've just not gotten back.
Well, at this point, you just got to wait till you got to paint them all again.
That's right.
And then just
That's right.
knock it all out in one.
Biles, they still woke on
Well, yeah, they're debating on the validity of Simone Biles being a top 5 Olympian with only 1 full Olympics under her belt, which is I guess is a fair gripe, but I think it's important to remember gymnastics.
She's still good.
Usually a 1 or 2
One and done.
Olympic sport. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I just like the Winter Olympics a lot more. Maybe
You like hockey. You're from the north, so you
yeah.
like hockey.
I like hockey. I also like watching like the ski and snowboard competitions.
What is the geographic line for where hockey just doesn't matter anymore? Because we are below it.
I think it's like
Columbus?
Yeah, it's like Miami, Ohio. Like it's like just above where we are right now.
I was going to say, because like if you look at, because
Nashville
OHSCA
has good
has,
fans.
the Ohio High School Athletic Association does have hockey as one of its sanctioned sports. And you look at the tournament, like if you pull up the bracket, it is all teams from Toledo and Cleveland. And then there's a lot of teams from Columbus. And then there's like here in Southwest Ohio, there's like 4 high schools that have hockey teams.
Really?
Yeah, it's Talawanda has it because it's in Oxford, and Oxford, Miami has a big
very
hockey
bad.
following. Yes. And then Moeller has one. Centerville has one. I don't think any of the GMC schools have one. And I think St. X has one, and that might be it.
That's crazy. My school had a hockey rink.
In Detroit, I am sure they all have hockey.
They all have them. Yeah, my school. They don't all have like home like arenas, but most of them play at like a public rink. All their games. But my school had a hockey rink.
When I was in high school, my Baden, like you could play hockey. It was a club team, so like 5 different high schools like made it together, and then they just took the name of one of the high schools. And I always thought it was interesting because the name that they took was Baden. Like it was the Baden hockey team, and like there was like one player from Baden, and the rest was like from Hamilton, Fairfield, and all this stuff. Because my sister's boyfriend at the time was from Fairfield and played Baden hockey. And then they do the exact same thing for lacrosse, to where like 4 or 5 different schools would come together and make a team, and that team was Fairfield. And I was just like, how do you decide whose name you take? Like, is it just a random? Is it whoever the coach, like whoever started it? Is that what it is? But it's
dealer's choice.
It's really interesting. Hockey was. If I could go back, so I mentioned earlier how I played, just basically the 3 main sports, soccer. Well, I played soccer until I could play baseball, and then I played baseball, football, and basketball. And if there was one sport that I wanted to take up, it would be hockey. I always thought hockey was badass.
If I could go back and redo everything in my childhood, I probably would have played hockey in the winter.
And I would have played golf.
And golf
after I quit football, because I played football until my sophomore year. I just didn't like it. Yeah, I always tell people, everyone goes, because I wasn't okay. I always started like for my teams, and I just remember every year, how you can smell the seasons changing.
Yeah, I
would smell fall coming around, and I would just be like, I gotta go to football practice. And then like after doing that for like the 4th consecutive year, I was just like, maybe I should stop playing the sport that I just don't want to play anymore.
If you just dread it. Football is one sport where if you just dread it, you can't play because you're just going to get hurt.
I played linebacker, and I liked hitting guys, and like it was everything. Like I said, I started did all these things, and I just remember always hating that feeling. And I felt so bad because my family was a baseball family. My dad really liked basketball. That's his favorite sport, but he was a baseball coach. We all played baseball. I played college baseball. And I remember my dad telling me one summer, he's like, I've never had a kid. I always regret not playing football. I never had a kid that played all the way through. I never got to go to like Friday Night Lights and see my kid play. Oops. And he told me that, and then like 2 months later, I quit. I felt bad, and I do regret not playing football my junior and senior year. And it's not because I missed playing football. It's because when I was a senior, Baden football made it to the regional championship for like the first time in like 20 years, and I missed out on that. I didn't care that I didn't play football. I just missed like winning. Like I was just like, it would have been cool to be like a part of like kind of like a historic team at the time, and now they've well surpassed that. I think they haven't lost a game in 5 years, regular season game. But at the time, it was a big deal, and I just remember like, man, it would have been cool to get there. Would have been really, really neat. But yeah, football stunk.
I played for 1 year in 7th grade, and we went winless in my middle school team, and we threw 2 passes all season.
Nice.
Yeah.
I also went winless in 7th grade.
Yeah. And then I quit the next year.
Yeah, I played kindergarten through senior year of high school.
Kindergarten football is ridiculous.
It's incredible.
It's ridiculous.
So my mom wouldn't let me play, so my dad and I would go get dinner every night, and we would just go to practice. He was the coach of the team, and I played. She didn't find out till like week 2. It's a crazy story.
My brother, it's funny you mentioned that. So my brother, he stopped playing because he had injuries. Drew did. He was the quarterback. He was a much better athlete than I was, and he broke his neck one year. Diving into a lake, broke his neck, and it was before football season. Well, he would go to every game and stuff like that. And one day, my mom decides she's gonna go watch like the team play. Drew's not playing, and like that. Drew's just on the sidelines and stuff like that. My mom goes to the game. My dad okayed my brother playing with a broken neck, punting and kicking. So my brother was literally like playing in a neck brace, but he was just punting and kicking. And my mom, it was like week 6, week 5, something like that. She at the game went ballistic on my dad because you're letting our son play football with a broken neck.
Not the best.
Not the best parenting decision there. But so be it. So be it. Football was okay. Football was okay. Love watching it. It's great to watch.
I always had a countdown on my phone until the first day of hitting because you'd have to do like that, week in shorts and then you do like 4 days in the helmet and none of that mattered. I just wanted to hit people.
Mark Fetters asked, Dad, did your dad teach you strikeouts and errors are good? No. No. So doing Little League Baseball this past week. So if you guys don't know, we did all the state Little League games. It was a lot of fun. I think the final broadcast that we did had over 8,000 to 9,000 views on it. At one point, it had over 500 people concurrently watching. It was great. It was fantastic. Hopefully, Westside makes it to the Little League World Series. But I was reminiscent of 2 stories, and this is how we'll conclude the show. I love telling stories about my dad as a football coach because I tell a lot of stories that make it seem like me and my dad aren't tight. My dad is my best friend. Like, we were very tight. He was just very hard on me, and that's okay. Love him to death. But the one story I have is in the district championship, 12U All-Stars, not the district championship, the district semifinals. I went like 3 for 3 with a home run and 2 doubles. And we're beating the snot out of this team. And I get to go up my 4th at bat, and I strike out looking. Once again, 3 for 3, home run, two doubles. Then I strike out looking. My dad immediately takes me out of the game. Immediately, he's like, we don't strike out looking. So I didn't play for the rest of the game. I was catching. I caught like every inning to this point. They threw someone else in pads in gear and like, you're catching now. So I didn't play the rest of the game. The other story I have is it was my 12-year-old year in Little League. We're playing over at Westside, regular season, and we're playing like the best team in the league. The coach of the other team was Ken Coomer, who's still the all-star coach, and everyone wanted to beat him because they're always so good. And I'm playing shortstop. And I hadn't played shortstop a whole lot, but our team wasn't very good, so I had to play shortstop that day. In the first inning, I made 3 errors at shortstop. They scored like 5 runs. My dad calls time after the 3rd error. And where you think like after like the 5th run it scored, he'd go out there to talk to the starting pitcher and, get a new pitcher in there, something like that. He walks right by the mound and walks right out to me at shortstop. He then calls over a left-hander to play shortstop. And he goes, Reed, get in the dugout. So I go in the dugout, and if you don't know Westside, they have like the dugouts are like below the ground. Like you have to go down steps into the dugout. And I'm the only one in there. We had 10 kids show up that day. So it's just me in the dugout. And my dad takes the bucket of balls that he was sitting on, and he throws them in the dugout and goes, pick up all those balls. So I start shrugging around. I'm picking up, 60 baseballs, putting them in the bucket. The game continues on. They continue playing. And after I get done with my task of picking up all the baseballs, I bring them up to my dad, sitting at the top step. And I'm like, hey, Dad, here's all the baseballs. And he goes, pick them up again. And threw the bucket on the ground and had me pick up the baseballs.
Oh, no.
It was awesome. All right, I'll tell one more little story because I like these stories. My dad was my coach. We are down a run. It's extra innings, bottom of the 7th because you play 6 in Little League. And I'm on first base. I'm 10 years old. And the week prior, I saw the best player in the league hit a home run and dance around the base paths. He was just much better. TJ Nickteen went and played professional baseball. And I'm on first base. We're down a run. A kid on our team hits a walk-off home run. Me being the jackwagon that I am, still to this day, I dance around the bases because we just won the game. And when I get to third, I slide in. It's a home run. I slide into third base. And while I did that, I think I missed the base, so I go back to touch it. And as I do that, the hitter passes me.
Oh.
So we're both out. We're both out.
That's incredible.
There was 1 out, so the game's over now because it's a double play, ending out.
Oh, my God.
We lose by a run. My dad, who I thought was going to just ream into me in the car ride home. It's like a 4-minute car ride from my house up to my from the Little League to my house. At this time, Terrell Owens had been in the media every time. They're asking him all these questions, and he just kept saying, no comment, no comment this, no comment that, no comment this. My dad immediately, and this is the best part, he wasn't even going to yell at me because it was such an embarrassing thing. He knew I was super embarrassed. He was going to be like, hey, what are you doing? And right as soon as he starts talking, he goes, hey, Reed, I go, no comment, Dad. No comment. And he's like, what? No comment. I got no comment on what happens. And then he reams into me and he's like, what the hell is wrong with you? What the hell is that? No comment? What are you talking about? And it's just what would have been a nice father-son moment, like, hey man, I know you messed up, but it's okay. Makes mistakes. What did we learn today? Let's not be cocky. Let's not dance around the base pass, all this stuff. I mean, he just reamed into me for the entire 5-minute car ride. But that's my dad. Love him to death. And I think he's coming tomorrow night to the game.
Nice.
But that's it. All right, guys, that was so much fun. We are going to do a little box lunch for the members. I had a lot of fun doing this today. Hopefully I get to do it a little more during football season because I love doing it during football season. But keep your phones close to you because I'm sure the Reds will be making moves soon. If they don't today, then they will tomorrow. This has been Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. We'll see you tomorrow.